And now that you've taken your seats, would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Go ahead, do it now.
Greetings. I just want to remind people that if you have not yet signed up and you're a current town meeting member, to make sure that you sign up on the sheet in the back for if you need to rerun. And if you are here and interested in running for a seat on town meeting, that you need to come by the clerk's office, get papers by February 14th. Make sure I say it right, and then you'll need to return them to my office by February 16th. That is true whether you want to run for a town meeting seat or a town-wide seat. Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask for a moment of silence, please. We have lost 3 longtime members of this body over the last few months. Al Fay, Adrian Gerbrands, and Joan Hastings, all 3 of them stalwarts of this body and of town government in general. So if you could please have a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, let's get some administrative work out of the way. I'd like to thank our help tonight. We have Joanne, I hope I don't mess up your name, Koba, Julianne Margrain, Chase Jackman, and Cole Waisner. So thank you for your help tonight, folks. Just a reminder on meeting protocol. If you wish to speak, please wait until I have recognized you. Stand and wait for the microphone. I know a few of you think you're loudmouths and can do without it, but no, wait for the microphone. And then name and precinct before you speak. I prefer that committees and boards speak through their chair or an appointee of the chair, and I hope whoever speaks will give both the pluses and minuses, but certainly emphasize the majority vote of the committee, because that's what's critical. We have one person joining us online, so we continue to abide by the ADA. If we don't finish our business tonight, we will adjourn until 2 days from this evening on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And what else? Oh, okay. Housekeeping motion. The moderator would accept a motion to allow us to have remote attendance as required by the ADA, to name Bruce Morey as deputy moderator, adjourn until Wednesday, 2 days from now at 7, if we should need to continue, and to allow us to vote by raising our hands instead of standing. Any discussion? All in favor?
Stand.
Thank you. Opposed? The motion carries, and now you can raise your hands. Okay, so let's start with Article 1. We have a few people who wish to speak to us beforehand. Mike Espaillo wishes to give us a quick update on the police station. Mike, please.
Hello. Well, didn't have to play town meeting microphone bingo. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone. Mike Espaillo, Select Board. I'm also the liaison to our police department from the Select Board, and I'm here to give you a brief update on our police station project, which we're so excited to start and get moving. So I've been told several times to keep it brief, and I'll do just that. So first slide here, we have the plan to do approximately a 35,000 square foot new modern facility on the existing site. Disregard what it says there for 16,000 square feet. That's just the footprint, and the slide is incorrect. The plan is for an approximate 35,000 square foot facility, give or take. That's what we have in the plan so far. Next slide, please. The Select Board has created a 12-member police station building committee to work in an advisory capacity only to advise the Select Board and police department leadership on the full scheme, scope, and production of the project. We have 2 Select Board members, 2 Planning Board members, a member from ZBRC, member from Ways and Means, member from Land Use, Capital Budget, and we're fortunate to have 4 resident members who have stepped up to assist us in this process, so I'm happy to have them on board. I want to specifically name them: Bob Hogan, former BHS principal Dr. Maynard Safardini, who happens to be a butter who lives on Briarwood, across from the Sears, the library. So I'm very happy to have him there to represent our butters. Joe Renzella Jr. and Alex Ferguson, I believe, is hidden behind the mic. That's the committee. Next slide, please. The proposed site is the existing site. Everyone knows where the police station is, along with the use of the neighboring field. It's going to require a zoning change, which will be coming to you next town meeting in May. For that, there are many advantages for keeping it right here, right where we have our police station. It does not require purchase of a new parcel of land. And as we all know, we've got a lot of capital projects on our near horizon. And anything we can do to keep our costs down for all these projects is good for the town and good for our taxpayers. We want to keep the government campus in town center intact. I think that's unique and awesome, and a great feature of our town center is we've got that campus feel with all of our government departments, and keeping the police station right there, I think is a great thing. It's also a central location, as everyone knows, the town common. It has easy access to 5 schools, Route 128, Route 3, Winton Street, Cambridge Street. They can be in any part of town in a matter of minutes, which is great. We're currently in the process of a feasibility study. This is different than the one we're doing for Fox Hill. You approved this in September 22 town meeting for a cost of $150,000. We're about 75% through the way on this feasibility study, and in 2 weeks, we should have the final report on existing conditions of the site and everything that goes along with that. So we're very excited to see what comes from that. It'll also help us determine space needs, footprint, general siting, and parking. And also the design, we know it's very important. We're going to allow for a colonial style building to fit in with our idyllic town center that everyone loves in common, to match the buildings that exist there. Next slide, please. Zoning change, we're sensitive to the loss of the open space. The parcel is in the Grandview Plan Development District, also including the area of the sculpture park. We are trying to use the least amount of area needed to do a state-of-the-art facility, and this parcel is perfect for that. We're going to be very considerate to the neighbors. behind, alongside Sears Street, Briarwood, end of Sleeper, and try to keep a buffer as much as possible with Grandview. Unfortunately, we're going to have to relocate the sculpture park. Selectman Tigas and I have already met with Barbara LaRue from the sculpture park, and we're working on finding a new home for it. Nothing has been decided yet, but I can assure you the sculpture park will continue. Next slide. Current police station conditions, and I love the word they use here. Deplorable is it's being kind. I first learned about the condition of that station when I was running for select board, and the chief took me through on a tour, and I was absolutely appalled at the condition of that building. And I couldn't believe that they pretty much work around what they have there every single day, and that we send them in there every day into that building. Dr. Suffredini, which it's a trip to be in meetings with him, we've had 2 already, he made a good point in our first meeting. He said he had the same experience as me when he went on his tour, and he said after the tour with the chief, he was there for 45 minutes or an hour. He said when he got home, he felt like he had a tick in his throat from just being in the building for an hour. And knowing Dr. Suff, he's not overly dramatic. He's a straight shooter. And for him to say that really just kind of hit home for me on the building. The police station has been on the capital plan for a long time. I think when Chief Kent was hired in 2010, we first floated the idea. 14 years ago, when Chief Brown came on a couple of years ago, he's continued that effort and brought us to where we are today. We're estimating 40 to 45 million for a cost, and along with the zoning change vote, we're going to come to you next town meeting for a vote on approval of the funding. So we're looking for your support. Next slide, please. Historic significance, everyone knows that it was the old Union School. Its historical significance has allowed, the district has allowed modifications to be made over time. And over the past 20 years, the town has really not invested in trying to preserve the building and keep it as a historical landmark. There have been many changes to the building to modify the integrity of the form. The clad windows replaced divided light windows. The architectural window casings have been replaced with clad trim. The original wood clapboard has been replaced with vinyl siding. So it's not the same building that everyone remembers from the Union School, and we are committed to work with the Historical Commission on preserving the memory and commemorate the history of the site. Next slide, please. Historic building impact. The age of the building is, everyone knows that it was built before the modern building codes. Police departments are classified as essential facilities. There's a lot of problems with the building. I want to keep it brief, so I'm not going to go through everything. But as you can read, it needs a lot of work, and renovating the building is not economically feasible. It's better to build a new facility. Next slide. Non-compliant with energy code. Mechanical systems need to be upgraded. Fire suppression. The electrical service doesn't meet the requirements you need to run a modern police station. The emergency generator needs to be upgraded. Fire system, obsolete, needs to be updated. Just loads and loads of stuff. Next slide, please. And last slide. How do you follow the project going forward? If you haven't already and you don't believe me, take a tour of the station. The chief is more than happy to lead you through. I know a lot of us work during the day. He's open on Wednesday evenings to take you on a tour. Take a look for yourself, and you'll see that this is not a want for the town. This is a need. It's a critical need. And he'd be happy to set an appointment with you to come and take a look at the station. We have a website in process to be built, and please reach out to any of us with any concerns, questions, anyone on the select board, the chief, Paul or John. The best way we're going to make the best project possible is through collaboration and hearing from all of you. We're looking forward to that. So thank you for your support, and happy town meeting. Back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mike. Mrs. Byer, I believe you have a point of information for us. Could we get a microphone over here, please?
Thank you. Can you hear me yet? It's not.
Just don't touch it.
I'm waiting. Okay, there we go. So, for a long time now, I'm Kathy Byer, Precinct 2, and I just want to make sure that people, when they speak with the microphone, would you please not hold it down here and talk over the top of it, because we can't hear you. It means that this is a directional mic, and directional means it needs to be aimed at your mouth, and think like a rock star. You never see rock stars holding a microphone down here. They hold them up here. So please talk into the microphone like a rock star, because many of us can't hear you, and it doesn't get picked up for BCAT unless you use the microphone as a directional microphone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Byer. We'll go on to our next report from Melissa Tintokoulis, our Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Can you hear me okay? Yes, great. Thank you, Town Meeting, for the opportunity to kind of share this brief update. Again, my name is Melissa Tintokoulis, and I work as the Economic Development Director. And I wanted to give you a brief update on this kind of significant rezoning initiative we've been working on. As of December, we now have a completed draft of the zoning proposal for the Mall Road corridor. And if you can, you recall, this area is about 400 to 500 acres in total. And if we look at it closer, you'll see that we've identified over 100 acres, much like this, which is a lot of surface parking lot. And what we're looking to do is really unlock the potential here while being very attentive to the community benefits that Burlington's looking for. So at this point, I wanted to kind of share a few of the key considerations of the policies that I'd like Town Meeting to look at, consider, as they're reviewing the document. Today it's online on the town website under the Economic Development Initiatives webpage, and you can find all the information as well as the last video of where we are on this initiative. But just to keep in mind, some of the policy considerations are really around building for pedestrians. So going forward, our idea is that everything is built for the pedestrian with connectivity and design that takes into consideration the human scale. We want to look at no net loss of commercial. We understand that this area is very much thriving in terms of the value it gives us as a community in commercial taxes, but also employment and opportunities for jobs. And I think what we're really trying to emphasize is that the goal over the next 20 to 30 years is to continue to add value and strengthen this core of our commercial district. So I think here I just want to mention a couple other things that we're incorporating in this new land use policy. Structured parking to really deal with the challenges of the land uses, to consolidate some of this parking so we can open up some open space opportunities as well as development opportunities. And we're really looking at adding residential as well. Liz will talk a little bit more about how we're trying to figure that out in terms of the mechanics, looking at MBTA, but also being very mindful of how we are strategically incorporating housing. And lastly, I'm going to show you a picture of kind of a vision of what this starts to look like as we think about it really 20, 30 years into the future. We're really thinking about a Burlington in 2050. This is not development that would happen overnight, but this is where we can bring value and new vitality to Burlington if we're really thoughtful. A lot like we did about probably 20 years ago, Town Meeting was very successful in laying down land use policies for 3rd Ave, and we're starting to really realize that today with the values of occupancy, probably some of the best in town. We're doing more analysis currently on that, and I just wanted to kind of remind us how we were very forward-thinking in that time, and that we're looking to do that again with kind of our area that we have now, but as a community, not just responding to a developer. So that's kind of the thinking, and that's where we are. We'll be vetting this out with all our land use policies and boards over the next several months. We've yet to identify whether it's May or a special town meeting that will bringing this to you, but that's still under consideration. And I will be in the back, and I'm happy to answer any questions or kind of discuss this further one-on-one at any time. So thank you very much. Escape it.
Thank you, Melissa. Now we have our planning director, Liz Bonventre, has some reports for us.
Thank you, town meeting. For the record, my name is Liz Bonventre. I'm the town planner in the planning department, and I'm here to give an overview of the MBTA communities law and what we are going to do as a town to comply and how we're going to do it. So here's an overview of kind of how I've structured my presentation. Governor Charlie Baker enacted the law in 2021 that requires that 177 towns in Massachusetts need to have at least one zoning district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right. So what that means is, we need to have housing by right in a certain area. So one of the, it has to be, you can't have age restrictions, so it can't be only over 55, you can't restrict bedroom numbers. It has to be 15 units per acre. So when you think about that, think about the townhomes that are behind the CVS and town center. That's kind of 15 units per acre, what you can think about in your head. So we're an adjacent community. We actually don't have any location requirements where this district needs to be, which is helpful. I think we're in good shape that way, but I do want to keep this type of development close to a bus route because I think it just makes the most sense. So things that you should know that it is not. This is not a 40B housing law. It does not require that we construct any number of housing units. It's just a zoning change. It doesn't require us to do any infrastructure changes. It doesn't require us to supersede DEP regulations, but we cannot receive any type of waivers from the state about this law. So, why is the state doing this? The state is doing this because we have, if you look in the green, you can see that, in the past, over 20 years, we've, been, building housing, but then the last 20 years, we really haven't, and we haven't kept up with the demand. And so people are leaving the state, and Governor Baker was very worried, and his whole administration was worried that it was going to become an economic disadvantage to the state as a whole. So, that's kind of long range. And so what are the consequences of not complying? So basically, we would lose access to some of the state's most lucrative grant programs. So we've received over $10 million recently in these programs. Things, 3rd and 4th Ave signalization, we wouldn't be able to have, seen 3rd Ave come to life without the money that came from the MassWorks program. Our PFAS water treatment facility, $4 million, that was one of the highest amounts received in the entire state, one of the top. So, and then the Middlesex Turnpike redesign in 128, all these things, we've really benefited from these grant programs that we would no longer have access to if we weren't able to if we were no longer eligible. And just thinking about, the economic development value that these projects have created in the town. So our plan for compliance, so our plan is to create a zoning overlay district and incorporate some of the mixed-use zoning form-based code. And form-based code is basically, it's pretty much design standards that invest in the public realm. So so your building has to look a certain way, it has to have a certain, but it also has to invest in public realm. So sidewalks, street trees, investment in that way. So one thing, this town has been extremely proactive when it comes to multifamily housing and very progressive in permitting and building it. So you guys, credit should be given where it's due. So we recommend locating at least, we have to use 50 acres, so 25 of those should be used on existing multifamily property. So we have Hallmark Gardens, Beacon Village, and Lord Barron. Those are all over 15 units an acre. So this bylaw, this zoning change would not create, allow additional housing there. But I think we should use this opportunity to think strategically about this requirement of the state. So, think about properties that have outlived their usefulness, could use a revamp, and, adding places for people to live in, the commercial sector can really enliven that and keep it active and thriving for years to come. So timeline. So we are in the yellow. So we are currently working with consultants at VHB to draft language and our compliance model. And the recommendation from the state is that we approve this MBTA community zoning district in the May 2024 town meeting, because the official compliance deadline is the end of this year. And so what have we done so far? So we've retained VHB. We have an entire web page dedicated to this topic on the planning department website. We have a working group that I've just kind of created. So we have select board members, planning board members, chamber members, ZBRC members, land use members, at-large members. The first working group meeting, for those of you that are interested, is next Wednesday in the evening. It's going to be a hybrid meeting. I'm going to get the exact time as soon as I know from the consultants when they're available, and it will be open to the public. So anybody that's interested, please come learn more. Use your voice and let us know what you think we should do. And I yield the rest of my time, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Liz. Yes, ma'am. Yes. We're not, well, I'll let one question, but that's it. These are just reports for information. We don't want to get into a discussion on them. We have other business to take care of tonight.
Pat Angelo, Precinct 3. I know two towns, Milton being one of them, are fighting this. So, before we jump into this with 2 feet, I'd like to see what happens with those two towns that are fighting this.
Thank you, Pat. All right, Liz, are you going to speak on Articles 2 and 4?
I understand that. So I think that I don't need to talk. So, no, I don't. Are you asking me if I want to talk, or?
No, I'm just checking.
I'm good.
You're all set?
I'm good. Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Dr. Conti has an update for us from the school department.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm here with Bob Cuna, Trade Sides. There are handouts in the back of the room if you haven't had them. I was asked by the school committee and the Ways and Means school subcommittee to just present a point of information tonight regarding a warrant article that you'll be seeing in May. So you'll have time to ask questions in May when the warrant article comes up. In May of 2022, this body approved a $500,000 warrant article for air conditioning at Pine Glen School. We're going to be submitting another warrant article to finish that project. We had an estimate before town meeting from BLM engineers for that would have, the $500,000 would have covered the cost. After town meeting, we went out to bid. The bidding environment, as you all have experienced, has been very volatile. The bids all came back at close to $900,000, so we didn't have enough money. And so over the course of that time, there's also been lots of conversation. Obviously, the Fox Hill project came up. The Fox Hill Building Committee has voted to maintain 4 elementary schools on 4 sites. So we are going to be, again, moving forward with this project at Pine Glen. So again, you will see a warrant article for air conditioning at Pine Glen, even though you've already seen one in 2022. In the interim, we have gone out and procured an HVAC contractor who works exclusively for the district under contract. They've given us, again, a price for this project. So what the warrant article you'll see in May will be their estimate for getting the work done finally to air condition Pine Glen, which is desperately needed. It's a very hot building in the fall and in the summer moving forward. So with that, Mr. Moderator, again, we will go through the whole process. We'll go back through capital budget. Again, you'll see the backup, and we will present that warrant article in May, but didn't want anyone to be confused by seeing a second warrant for air conditioning at Pine Glen in addition to the one that you already approved in 2022. So thank you, Mr. Moderator, thank you.
Dr. Conti, thank you. Let's move on to our next article, Article 2 and Article 3 and Article 6 have been withdrawn. So we'll move on to Article 4. Article 4 has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee, and it is as printed in the warrant. I will ask for committee votes and then allow the proponent to speak to the article. So, Planning Board, is there a vote on this article?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Barbara LaRue, Chair of the Planning Board. The Planning Board voted in favor of this article 6-0.
Thank you. Land Use Committee, I have your vote. Do you wish to speak on it?
Hi, Dave Wadilla, Chairman of the Land Use Committee. We voted 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstained. In general, our view was this was a good approach, meeting the needs of business segment and the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wadilla. Zoning Bylaw Review Committee, do you have a recommendation? Ms. Hughes?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The ZBRC voted 6-0-0 in favor of this. As a reminder, the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee reviews the wording for these articles to make sure that they are clear, concise, and that the language is consistent with the master plan and mass general laws. So,
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Okay, I believe that's all the committee reports we have coming on this. So gentlemen, if you'd introduce yourselves and present your article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Town Meeting, for having us here this evening. My name is Edward Parry. I'm an attorney at Brown Rudnick. With me is Steve Venezia. He's with a company called CMD, and they are one of the largest franchisees of Planet Fitness in the Commonwealth and throughout New England. Planet Fitness is currently located on Raymond Avenue, which is right behind the Ice Palace. The facility itself needs to be redone, and they're looking to relocate. As they began to look in Burlington, to stay in Burlington, it was clear that the zoning bylaw doesn't allow for these modern and larger fitness facilities. The current Burlington zoning bylaw limits the size of these to 5,000 square feet, which is just not economical in the industry. So Planet Fitness has been working with Burlington Equitable Limited Partnership, which is the owner of the building at 240 Middlesex Turnpike Extension. For those familiar, this is the location of the Bauer Hockey Experience. The hockey experience is downsizing and giving up some space, so it was a good opportunity for the property owner to seek a new tenant. They had had discussions with Planet Fitness, but because they ran into the zoning bylaw, they couldn't relocate. The facility on Raymond Avenue is a non-conforming use, so they can stay and operate there, but nowhere else in town. So in working with the planning department, we came up with a zoning bylaw amendment, which we're presenting this evening. We're seeking to allow for larger fitness centers, more modern fitness centers, in the business general district. For those of you familiar with the zoning map, this would be the red district. There was some concern about the central business district, so we actually restricted and maintained the 5,000 square foot size for those districts. In discussions with the planning board during the hearing, we did agree to amend the zoning bylaw change to require a special permit. So right now, what we have is a bylaw amendment which allows for fitness centers from over 5,000 square feet up to a maximum of 20,000 square feet. We will note that nearby towns don't have this size restriction, with Planet Fitness wanting to remain in Burlington. The Bauer Hockey Experience building is certainly a good opportunity if, in fact, that all works out. So with this bylaw amendment, we would still go before the planning board to deal with any site-specific issues at 240 Middlesex Turnpike Authority. As I mentioned, the red districts are the districts where the only districts where these larger size facilities would be allowed. The Bauer Hockey Experience is up on the western side, I guess the northwestern side of town in that red area, if you can see that on the map. This is the text of the proposed bylaw amendment. In order to accommodate this use, we created a new definition, or we proposed to create a new definition to include a fitness studio. So we kept the same use, fitness centers. They'll be allowed to be up to 20,000 square feet, more than 5,000, up to 20,000. As you'll see in the middle under the BG, it'll be allowed by special permit. We then created fitness studio to maintain the status quo with the smaller facilities, yoga studios and things like that. And those would still be allowed just as they are in the bylaw today. So none of these uses change. As you'll see, the smaller facilities are still allowed within the overlay districts. And really the only change is the special permit in the BG. I want to have Steve give a brief presentation about a potential tenant in 240 Middlesex Turnpike. I would note that this is not seeking approval for any site-specific. This is to the bylaw in general. This type of use would be allowed by special permit in the business general district throughout Burlington, so not just at the Bauer Hockey Experience. So with that, Steve.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you everybody for your time and inviting us here to speak on this. CDM was founded in 2007 and began franchising Planet Fitness locations at that time. We currently have the good fortune of owning 73 locations in 5 states, predominantly here in New England. We did purchase the Burlington location in November of 2022, and we recently agreed to an LOI with Burlington Equitable LP in 23 with the goal of bringing our high-value, low-cost fitness operations to everyone here in Burlington. As Ed indicated, our current location on 40 Ray Ave has been open since 2007. There you have our hours of operation. We currently service about 5,300 members, and there is 25,000 square feet there, of which about 18,000 square foot is used as gym space. Some of it's a mezzanine with a second floor that's not utilized for gym space, but it is severely out of standard at this point, and unfortunately, due to the nature of the building, there's limited opportunities for upgrading it to a modern fitness facility that we want to offer the folks of Burlington. The new location at 240 Middlesex Turnpike Extension would offer the same hours of operation and continue to service those 5,300 plus members, and it would actually be 17,500 square feet of state-of-the-art gym space, which is a little bit less than our current footprint, but with the layouts that we have nowadays and the way of optimizing the footprint, it'll be a much better offering. For us, it's all about the community, right? We want to have higher visibility and easier access for our members. We want to be closer to our members. We want to have better ADA accessibility, as well as our improved layout, amenities, and offerings, which all will be available here, as well as parking, which you'll hear in a second. But again, it's just that increasing that low-cost, high-value fitness offering to the people of Burlington. There's a current view of our parking at Ray Ave. It's actually this parking right out in front, if that cursor's, yep. It's not the Ice Palace parking over here, so there are only 58 spaces, which is a detriment to our members for sure. The new parking does have 159 available spaces, which is an increase of over 100 spaces. And, you know, again, just as Ed reminded, this would still require a special permit, so this is really not about the site specifics. This is about the bylaw amendment, which would apply to all fitness uses, not just Planet Fitness. I did want to, this is just something I'm really proud of. Planet Fitness offers free access during the summer to teens aged 14 to 19. As I was looking at this particular, the stats for this club, it stuck out to me that the check-ins in the summertime actually increased because 994 local high schoolers joined the club in the summer and took advantage of that program. So, you know, just something I'm really proud of. This one holds a close place in my heart. I grew up in Billerica. My grandmother still lives on Brantwood Lane in Burlington. I spent about half my childhood here when this was Star Market, and going to Building 19 and getting free coffee with those sugar cubes afterwards. So, and going over to Simons Park. So this one holds a special place in my heart. I've done a lot of these, but this one's not just another one. So I really do want to thank you for taking the time to hear us out this evening and throughout all the meetings that we've had. These are just some photos of inside the club, just to give us a scope of what we offer nowadays. Floor to ceiling tile in the wet areas, really beautiful finishes. Our black card amenities, including cryotherapy and massage therapy, which are great, by the way. If you haven't done it, try it. And you know, a state-of-the-art facade, and again, the parking. So thank you again.
So I guess, Mr. Moderator, we'd be happy to answer any questions. We thank everyone for your attention and consideration. We hope you'll support this zoning bylaw change as presented in Article 4. As I said, we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll open up for discussion from the body. Mr. DiTucci.
Dan DiTucci, Precinct 6. I'm a abutter to the property. I own the dry cleaners right there. And I thought this was a great, great idea. I've been a member of Planet Fitness, not just in Burlington, but I went to Billerica when you opened up that place. It's really, really a really great experience for $10 a month. It's the crown jewel. Everything was fine with me until last week I found out from my landlord that Planet Fitness and Bauer Hockey, in order to make it work, they need an additional 1,000 square feet. It just so happens that my unit is 1,000 square feet. I've been there for 32 years, and my landlord basically said, in order for this to be secured, they need to take this space. Puts me out of business. So I'm not sure that I can support this tonight. If this is, even though you say it's not site-specific, I'm pretty sure that you are talking about 240 Middlesex Turnpike right now. So all I'm asking for, my landlord for 31 years has been a great landlord, cut us a lot of slack during COVID and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do tonight here is I'm just going to reach out to Planet Fitness, because I can do this, because I pay you $10 a month. So I'm looking to see if Planet Fitness can somehow come forward and say we can find a way to tighten up 500 square feet on our end, and hopefully we can get the Bauer Hockey to say the same thing. We can tighten up another 500 square feet. If you can do that, that would be great for me. I would support it. And instead of going to the Planet Fitness in Billerica, I can go to the Planet Fitness 10 feet away. But like I say, it's a great idea, but if I support this tonight, I'll be signing my death warrant. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Of course, and if I could, Mr. Moderator, we'll always absolutely talk to our neighbors and whatnot. We don't have the layouts finalized or anything like that. We don't have them approved from the franchisor, so we can't represent that we're going to need, you know, your 1,000 square feet or anything like that. Certainly, we would have to finalize that, but we would work diligently with you. I'm the person who does that, just so you're aware. I'm not just another guy. Work diligently with you to try to preserve your business. We never want to put anybody out of business that is succeeding in the community and as a member of the community. That's not what we aim to do. And so if that means we need to try to work on the footprint or what have you, then we'll do it.
I've been a town meeting member since 1992, and more often than not, I always speak to support businesses, all different types of business, especially businesses not only just coming into town for the first time, but existing businesses. You guys have already been in Burlington because you've been down there. I started to go to that location, and then obviously the parking was terrible, so I went over to Billerica. But the only way I can support this, like I said, is at least if I have, can I get a word from you? Can I get something that says that we could probably find a way to avoid you being evicted, or is that going to be hard for you to say that?
Tonight, I can promise you that we will work with you and certainly try to do everything we can. I obviously can't promise, I don't know what Bauer's position is. That's not, that's not up to me, so to speak. I don't know what the landlord's position is. I know from Planet Fitness' perspective, I can promise you that we will work with you to try to preserve whatever we can and make the layout work. You hit the nail on the head. This is not site specific. This happens to be the site we're working on. This is for anything in the red zone so that fitness centers can, be up to 20,000 square feet in that red zone, that BG district. But absolutely, you have my word that I will absolutely try to work with you to see what we can do to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Right. How important is it that you have 17,000 square feet as opposed to 16,500 square feet?
We range, so
Right.
it's not, listen, it's not absolutely critical. We can work on the layout, we can work with our architects, things like that. Again, the layout hasn't been approved by the franchisor, so we can certainly work on that to try to accommodate everyone.
Okay, that would be good for me, but like I said, I just, to be able to support it tonight, let's just say I'm going to do something that I've never done as elected official. I have to abstain.
I understand. Thank you so much for speaking,
Okay.
and we can continue the conversation.
Right, yeah. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pearson, I think I saw your hand.
Mr. Moderator, Monty Pearson, Precinct 3. I was going to speak about reasons for supporting this, but given the current situation, I would like to move that we table this motion.
Is there a second to that? Discussion on it. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of tabling it? Please. Mr. DiTucci.
Dan DiTucci, Precinct 6. I don't support that. I want this to go forward tonight. I take their word for it. And I don't want this to have to come back, because I know they have to go through, the Attorney General has to approve this, first of all. It has to go through to the Planning Board. And you wouldn't be in there until, I was retired or something, but let's go forward with it, and I'm going to go by his word.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, could we
Excuse me?
could we respond?
No. Well, hold on, let's keep this sucker moving. All right. We have a motion that's on the floor. Any further discussion on it? Put your hand down, Monty, we're going to vote on it. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Okay, the motion dies. Back to the article. Further questions? Mr. Riggs.
Roger Riggs, Precinct 3. So I noticed in the use table, the ability to create a fitness center in BN, BL, BG, BT was changed. So why were changes made to the existing fitness table for fitness centers? My impression was that you were adding a capability, not removing one. I don't know who can answer that.
I'm not sure. We are adding the capability in the BG zone for a fitness center. For a fitness studio, which is a separate use, those are all new uses, but they are identical to what it is today.
I guess what I'm commenting on is there were some yeses under fitness center that were changed to nos.
The reason being is because fitness center used to be only up to 5,000 square feet, and now that's fitness studios. So all of those yeses used to apply to fitness centers, but fitness center is now a different definition of 5,000 to 20,000 square feet. So it had to be changed in order to reflect it only being allowed in the BG district. So it's exactly the same for the fitness studios. Fitness centers used to be up to 5,000 square feet. Those were allowed there. Now that's covered by fitness studios.
Thank you.
Of course.
Further questions? Seeing none, this is a zoning article, so I need 2/3. All those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Looks like there's one opposed. It's clearly a 2/3 majority in favor. The motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all very much. Much appreciated. Thank you.
We're going to take a half a step backwards. Liz Bonventure wanted to make a couple comments on the articles that were pulled, and I skipped right by it. So Liz, if you could take a minute and comment on quickly on Article 3 and Article 6.
For the record, Mr. Moderator, I'm Liz Bonventre. I'm the planning director. I just wanted to give you guys updates on what we've been doing. We had originally put this in your warrant and the addendum as well. So we're talking about parking modernization. We've currently been working on this since the beginning of November. So why are we going to bring it? What changes are being proposed, and what's the status? So we undertook, it's kind of a big undertaking, to do an overhaul of Article 7, the general regulations section of our bylaw, which is actually, the nuts and bolts of it is the parking regulations. And so with the aim of modernizing and streamlining those regulations, making changes to think about climate and resiliency, making them easier to read, not only for us as practitioners, but for developers and businesses, and for residents as well, and to formalize standards. The planning board does a lot of negotiation with developers about how the parking lot looks and works, and specifically around landscaping, so we wanted to have those standards kind of in the bylaw ahead of time, so everything's already laid out. So why are we proposing them? To update the requirements to the latest Institute of Traffic Engineers parking generation manual. These people go out and count cars in parking lots for a living, so that's why we're using them. Allowing parking reduction methods, adding design standards for off-street parking and for parking facilities, and updated landscaping requirements for all commercial property. So this is a big undertaking. We've done a lot of work. We've had some amazing help from the Chamber of Commerce, from Land Use Committee, ZBRC, from my board, the Planning Board, and right now it's with Town Council to kind of put the final, cross the T's, dot the I's at the end, and we will be submitting this for May town meeting. So we just wanted to give you an update on what we've been doing with regards to this. If you want to keep updated, you can, our email, please reach out. We're always around. Come talk to us, and you can follow us on social media at planning01803. And then my next thing, is that okay if I go on to my next article, Mr. Moderator?
Please go ahead.
All right, excellent. Article 6 is the use table modernization. This is the addendum you received, the 100-page addendum that you received in the mail, and you thought to yourself, what is this? This is what this is. We're modernizing our use table. It hasn't been modernized for it hasn't been overhauled in 20 years, so another kind of bylaw overhaul. So this is the use table, section 4, and then also tied to that are the definitions, so that's a separate section as well. So again, what's the purpose, what changes, what's the status? Is to update the use regulations by bringing them into the 21st century. We're streamlining it, we're removing obsolete uses, we're adding modern uses in an effort to make it more friendly for town hall staff to use it, for residents to use it, and for commercial enterprises to use it. So what changes are being made? We are going to get rid of the uses for things like dance halls, sanatoria, retail dealers, and grain and animal feed. Those are all things that are currently in our bylaw that we might not need anymore, I don't think. We're adding modern uses, so we're going to add things that we want to see in town. When somebody Googles, where can I open a brewery in Massachusetts? We want Burlington to come up because on Google, because our bylaw says brewery, distillery, cidery, winery. We're consolidating related uses. So all of the uses in red have to do with public facilities. We're putting them into one use in the use table as opposed to having, 5. We're also truncating verbose uses. So all of the existing uses, we're truncating the name, and all this text is going into the definitions section. So that's Article 2 of my bylaw. So these are things to look forward to in May. So what's the status? Maytown meeting, we're going to resubmit it for Maytown meeting. Again, it's with Town Council. She's been amazing. Again, big shout outs to Land Use, ZBRC, my board, and then the Chamber's also been extremely helpful with this. So I just wanted to thank everybody, and I will see you in May.
Thank you, Liz. Last May we got through in 2 nights. I had a feeling we're not going to do that this May. But we'll try. Okay, Article 7.
Article 5.
Article 5. Article 12. Article 5, how about? Article 5. Yes, Myrna, we have 99 people here. Okay, Article 5. Let's get the recommendations. All right, hold on, let me do my job here. Article 5 has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee, and it is as written in the warrant with one minor edit. If you go on your text to section 8.1.9, you will see the date 2024. Cross it out and put in July 6, 2016. It's just the correct reference to the state law. July 6, 2016. Okay, recommendations. Planning Board. Ms. Rowe. Just wait.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Planning Board voted in favor of this article 6-0.
Thank you. Land Use Committee. Mr. Wadilla.
Hi, Dave Wadilla from the Land Use Committee. On this one, we voted 6 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstained. For this article, the requirements and approach was understood. The view is that this is a necessary update based on federal requirements. Against, the actual impact's not going to be fully understood until the update of federal floodplain maps are made available. And the view is to defer until that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wadilla. Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. Any comment? Ms. Hughes.
ZBRC approved 6-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keeley, take her away.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Keeley, Conservation Administrator. So the town of Burlington currently has a floodplain bylaw. The bylaw is a requirement of FEMA for the town to be in the National Flood Insurance Program, which is the program which enables anybody who lives in the floodplain to buy flood insurance. So if the town stays in the floodplain program, people will continue to be able to buy flood insurance whose properties are in the floodplain. But to stay in the program, FEMA requires the town have certain things in its bylaw which we currently do not have. So the state works with FEMA, the state being DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, and they developed a model bylaw that incorporates all the requirements that FEMA wants in their bylaw. So I basically took the model bylaw from DCR, fixed it up, put Burlington in the right places, and filled it in. And the proposal is to replace the existing bylaw in its entirety with this new bylaw. So as referenced by the one dissenting vote, FEMA has restudied the floodplains and are in the process of coming up with new floodplain maps. They're not ready now. They probably won't be ready for at least a year, and there will be public forums and whatnot to discuss the floodplain maps. So this bylaw would need to be amended again to reflect the new floodplain, the maps of the new floodplain maps, the dates of the floodplain maps, excuse me. The 2016 reference, which you just saw noted in the bylaw, is the date of the current maps we have. So the maps we're using now were adopted in approved by FEMA in 2016. The new maps will probably come out in 2025, at which time the floodplain bylaw will just need a brief amendment just to swap out the dates.
Thank you, Mr. Keeley. Questions on this article? Seeing none, let's put this to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? It's clear 2/3, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Article 7, to amend the Town of Burlington zoning bylaw, Article 4, Section 4.2.0. Has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee. Recommendations of our boards. Planning Board? Hold on.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Planning Board voted 2 in favor, 4 against, and 1 abstention on this article.
Thank you. Land Use Committee, Mr. Wadilla.
Hi, Dave Woodilla, Land Use Committee. Okay, so this actually had a lot of discussion in land use. We thought this was actually a reasonable modification to the use of the existing land and location. We understood that traffic onto Route 3 would be incremental. However, other by right uses could be far worse than this. We did have a lot of discussion sort of in the against category around the neighborhood concerns. Okay, so through Mark Vaughn and Herb Chambers, it's clear that Herb Chambers has no intention of rezoning the resident-only property or residential property. And this would also be required to come through town meeting. So we sort of felt that those concerns were allayed, at least for the time being. So 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstained. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wadilla. Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. Ms. Hughes.
The ZBRC, in looking at the language of this amendment, voted 5 in favor, 1 against, 0 abstain.
Thank you. Mr. Vaughn, your turn.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Moderator and ladies and gentlemen of town meeting. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with the law firm of Reamer Bronstein here tonight representing Herb Chambers in connection with the article. Please before you have some representatives of Herb Chambers here as well. But so we're here in connection with the property at, Amy, are you able to?
Okay. Lisa, hit where it says pit plate. Okay, that's the best we can do right now. So I will take place.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for your patience on that. So we're here in connection with the property at 93 Cambridge Street, which is the Kia dealership that's located on Cambridge Street. We have a text amendment article that's been submitted that would allow for what we feel would be an appropriate renovation, long overdue renovation and expansion to that property. So for those of you that are familiar with the site, and I'm sure many of you are, and you probably drive by it frequently, if not daily, but the property is formerly occupied by Passon Weiss. It was an existing dealership that was built in 1970 and was operated by Passon Weiss at that time. So Passon Weiss owned 93 Cambridge Street, which is where the dealership building is, as well as the adjoining properties 95 and 97, which I still refer to as the Quick Copy and the Waltham Pest building. So those were all acquired by Herb Chambers as part of one package acquisition at the time. So this is going to allow for a beautification of the property and a more meaningful improvement for our customers. So the property, again, has historically been operated as an automobile dealership, which is a lawful pre-existing non-conforming use at the site. Under today's bylaw, in the BG zone, automobile dealership is not allowed, hence it is a lawful non-conforming use. So the bylaw amendment would delineate a new use category for existing automobile dealerships in the BG zone that would allow for expansion under certain limited and other requirements, which would obviously require special permit approval from the planning board as well. This approach is very similar to what we had presented to town meeting several years ago for the Porsche building, as many of you might recall, a similar text amendment that was done at that time. And we feel that that building did come out in many, by all respects, very consistent with what we had presented to town meeting at the time. And I think the building looks very nice and has added a lot to that area. So the next slide is just the language of the bylaw itself, but the language is to allow for automobile dealership, including redevelopment and expansion of existing facilities only that can include integrated structured parking. It says that the dealership has to be in use, in existence as of the date of the adoption of this bylaw and involve the sale of new vehicles, which this dealership obviously does. And then any redevelopment or expansion could extend on to abutting BG zone lots, which Herb Chambers owns. And we do cap the total amount of building area that could be proposed as 20,000 square feet. The building that we have come up with a conceptual plan for is 17,600 square feet in size, which would be by far the smallest dealership in town by comparative purposes. So the next slides are meant to really just show you why we didn't rezone to the BT zoning district. The BT zoning district is the only zoning district in town that actually allows for automobile-oriented uses. But the reason we didn't rezone it to the BT is that it allows for gas station uses, as you can see. It allows for auto repair uses. It allows for car washes and used car establishments and a whole host of things. And in addition, it also allows for adult entertainment in the BT zoning district. So we made a calculated decision that that was probably not a wise move to try to rezone to the BT, and we felt that this form of a text amendment would be the much preferred option. So this is the property that you can see on the screen now, and again, I suspect that many of you are familiar with it, but as you work your way from left to right, you will see the existing Kia dealership building and the adjacent parking that's there. That's the former Passon Weiss location. To the right of that is where the Waltham Pest building is at 95 Cambridge, and 97 Cambridge is on the far right. As you can see, our goal is to reimagine these properties through more of a cohesive design, improving circulation, reducing curb cuts. There's wide open curb cuts there today, and also there's no continuity of any architectural design or whatnot. So These next photos are really just showing the same as what we just showed before, but more just the front-on appearance of them. And I think you can see that, again, no interconnection from a design, vehicular connection, or architectural perspective. And you can see on the overall photo showing all three together that wide open curb cuts. There's no sidewalk along there at all, and not what I feel the vision of the town and others would be to try to see that look a lot better from the street. So the next slide is just kind of summarizing our rationale for wanting to do this. Again, the dealership building today is very much undersized and inefficient in terms of its overall layout. Again, it was built in 1970 and it hasn't been modified since that time. Actually, if you go to that facility, the service drive for the service bay is actually behind the building on the second floor. So it's really not an efficient, effective layout, poorly configured parking, inefficient use of paved area. And we're really trying to make for a more modern, contemporary dealership experience for our customers, residents of the town. We do have a very large number of residents of Burlington that are customers of the dealership, and we feel that the community does deserve a high-quality, up-to-date dealership, and one that we could all be more proud of in terms of its overall appearance. So this is the conceptual plan that you can see that's been developed in terms of how the site would be repositioned. Again, the building on the far left is the existing building where that kind of angular feature is. That building is there today, so the addition would be built to the right of it. And again, you can see that we've consolidated the curb cuts, 2 curb cuts into and out of the site. We have provided over 420 feet of new sidewalk that would be proposed along Cambridge Street, which we feel is very much going to increase and improve pedestrian safety and allow for a connection up to a pedestrian signal that exists up at Corporate Drive. And significant landscaping enhancements and upgrades. We've engaged a professional landscape architect who is involved with this that is really going to be attentive to the type of landscaping, native, non-invasive species, and trying to really improve the overall visual character of that. So you see there'd be parking integrated within the building, and you can see on that concept plan that the driveway on the far right, as you come in under the building there, would allow for parking within the building footprint. And that allows us to have less overall paved space compared to what's out there today. So the next slide is just a overall rendering of the building. Again, I think you can see the building on the left is what's there and what would be added on to the right. There is significant landscaping along Cambridge Street. Intent would be to kind of keep that lower growth in order to not affect any sight distance issues and whatnot, but certainly open to that discussion as we get further along, and again, sidewalk improvements and the like. So the next slide, I don't want to be repetitive, but again, significant aesthetic enhancements that are effectuated by this: expanded landscaping, improved green space, better waiting area, customer showroom, vehicle storage within the building, and lastly, I didn't touch upon this yet, obviously a significant increase in tax revenue as well that would be derived from the investment into the property. So the next slide, there's been a lot of focus from folks just about the residential lot that is owned by Herb Chambers as well. There is a residential lot that is behind the existing dealership that goes out to Arlington Road, and that was, again, it was purchased at the same time that Herb purchased the entire assemblage of land from Pass and Weiss. We have gone on the record with the planning board and also with town meeting. I think Herb, in a letter that was sent, documented that commitment that we have no intention and are committed to not rezoning that RO lot. Obviously, any rezoning would need to be before town meeting. The article that's before you right now has no impact whatsoever on RO. This just deals with the BG zone land. But as a belt and suspenders approach, we have indicated that we would not, and we would entertain and be willing to have conditions in our permit that specifically say that we have
No objection to the following conditions that were listed here, that we will not seek to change the zoning district designation of the RO property. The RO property shall remain in the RO district. And secondly, no vehicular connection from Arlington Road providing access to or from any BG zone land shall be allowed or constructed. That is not allowed today under the bylaw, just for the body's knowledge. If you're not already aware, you can't access commercial land through a residential zone. But again, just to make doubly clear on our commitment, we would expect those to be conditions that are placed on our approval, and those are conditions that run with the land, that affect the property. They would be recorded at the Registry of Deeds and in perpetuity. So with that, I certainly entertain any questions you may have. Certainly appreciate all of your consideration of this. I know that we've tried to be communicative and transparent through the process here, and we do feel that this is going to be a tremendous upgrade and improvement to what's out there today. So thank you. And thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Before we open it up to the body for discussion, the planning board has both a con and a pro comments to be made. Ms. LaRue.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As I stated before, this was a split decision of the planning board. The vote was 2 in favor, 4 against, 1 abstention. I'm going to speak for those members who voted against, and my friend Ernie will speak for those members who voted in favor. There were a number of reasons why the 4 members voted against, but before we even get to that, I want to caution everyone here tonight about what you're voting on. You are not voting on the pictures of the building, or the site plan, or the traffic, or the sidewalks, or the pretty landscaping. That's not what you're voting on. You're voting on a text amendment. So don't be influenced by the pretty pictures, because that may be what you're getting and it may not be what you're getting. That's not what you're voting on. This is a non-conforming use. And in general, the planning board has always recommended that we do not expand non-conforming uses. The purpose of non-conforming use is to allow a business to continue when the zoning has changed, but the idea is that over time, it should be replaced with something else that is conforming. So the idea of expanding a non-conforming use is generally frowned upon. This is the only car dealership in town that is next to a residential neighborhood, and that has a big impact. It is something that will impact its neighbors. The neighbors have concerns, and their concerns are valid. The service bays will be in the back of the building, which means they will be closest to the residential properties. As for the property at, I think it's 16 Arlington Road, I understand what the proponent has suggested for wording, but that actually is not binding. The only way that this could be guaranteed is if there was something in the deed for that property. There is nothing to stop the proponent from coming back in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years or 10 and asking for another zoning change. I fully believe that they intend right now not to do that, but I need you to understand that the wording suggested is not a guarantee. It would have to be in the deed. Lastly, I would ask that you make sure to leave time for the neighbors today, because they did come out and they have concerns that they would like to share with you. Ernie?
Mr. Covino, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ernie Covino, I'm a planning board member. Myself and my fellow planning board member, Tony Ann DiNatola, not DiNatola, Tony Ann Natola, sorry, Tony, voted in favor, and Tony wanted me to make sure I mentioned that Herb Chambers has been a good corporate citizen. And reasons that we voted in favor of it were because this has been there for 50 years. In our opinion, at least in my opinion, it's going to stay there no matter what you do. So we thought it would be best to make it better, make some defined curb cuts on Cambridge Street. which can be done and will be done if you pass it through the site plan approval process. And as Barbara said, this is only the first step. If you do approve it, it has to come back to the planning board for site plan approval. And in Mr. Vaughn's presentation before the planning board, in order to get a recommendation to this body from the planning board, I believe he did say Herb Chambers would encumber the deed so that it could not be used as a cut through to Arlington Road. I could be mistaken there, but if it comes back to the planning board and site plan approval, that's something I'm sure that I will be looking for. Town meeting, sorry. Also, this property is in the BG zone, and in the BG zone, any commercial property that abuts residential property must have a 20% of the depth of the property must be set aside for a buffer between the commercial and residential property. So it couldn't be used for a parking lot or anything. As a matter of fact, I believe the zoning bylaw says a vegetated buffer. Let's see what else we have here. And I think, Tony, anything else that you can think of? No? I'm sorry. And as Tony said, it would make this very horribly looking dealership a much better looking piece of property. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Okay, we'll open it up for discussions from the body. I expect a number of people will wish to speak on this. I request that you keep your comments to 2 to 3 minutes. I don't want to have to be cutting anybody off, so please follow that. Yes, go right ahead, Bam. Ms. Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sherry Ellis, Precinct 3. I want to speak as a dissenting vote for the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. I was the negative vote, and as you recall, we talk about the language of the bylaw. And I have 2 reasons with the language of the bylaw that I can't vote in support of this. The first is with regard to the actual text. I believe that this language has left some room for questions and some unintended consequences. Although the proponent addressed my concerns relative to the size of the buildings by placing the limitation there, the question of expansion for additional parking has not been addressed. The proposed language states that development may extend into additional BG zone properties, thereby allowing the proponent opportunity to purchase abutting properties and extend the parking lot both north and south on Cambridge Street. The second is with respect to conforming to our bylaws and our master plan as part of our charge. I believe that utilizing the use table to rezone property is not in keeping with the intent of our bylaws. We have 12 established zoning districts as a way to zone or rezone property. At last week's land use meeting, the proponent's attorney stated that no other property in town will be able to take advantage of this particular bylaw. The term for this concept is called spot zoning, which is commonly defined as the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding areas for the benefit of a property owner and to the detriment of other owners. Perhaps the most important criteria to determine spot zoning is to decide if the requested zone is consistent with the municipality's master plan. And to that end, our recently completed master plan states, Cambridge Street should evolve to become an extended community service-oriented corridor that provides a rich mix of shopping, service businesses, civic services, institutions, recreational, open space, and a variety of housing choices. The entire corridor should be enhanced as a pedestrian, bicycle, and transit corridor that's connected to the neighborhoods of Burlington. Sorry. There's a reason that auto dealerships are located in the BT zoning district. The BT zone has very limited areas in town as a way to discourage their uses. It's apparent with this that the intent of the zoning bylaws is to reduce these uses. By circumventing the rezoning to BT, the proponent is attempting to continue and expand an already non-conforming use that is, in fact, discouraged in both our bylaws and the master plan. So for those reasons, I can't support this.
Mr. Vaughn, any response?
Respectfully, through the moderator to the town meeting member, I disagree that this is spot zoning. I think spot zoning would be that if we zone this to a specific zoning district that is different from the zoning districts that are around it. This is no different from what we did with the text amendment that was submitted back in 2017, 2018 for the Porsche dealership that allowed for the expansion of that property onto the adjoining property subject to specific limitations and requirements. So we do believe that this is consistent with the town's master planning efforts. I know that the town's economic development director is here or was here. I think that you could disagree if that's the case or speak to it, but this is reinvestment in an existing property that's there. You know, it's interesting. There's no auto dealership in town that's actually in a BT zoning district today. So they're all non-conforming. So it's, you know, we're trying to make an investment in the community that we feel is going to be appropriate, internalizes operations within the building, and you know, what we are proposing conceptually is what we would intend to proceed with, obviously, and so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Further questions from the body? Mr. DeBona.
Battery dead? Oh, now I think it's working.
Test, test.
Thank you, Jeff DeBona, Precinct 3. So I live in this neighborhood. I've lived in this neighborhood my entire life. I've spoken with neighbors. I've had neighbors reach out to me. I've taken many lefts off of Arlington Road in my life. I take many every week. I think it's a great addition to the neighborhood. People I've spoken to say it's a great addition to the neighborhood. We have to do something better with that area. It's a crap building with two crap buildings next to it. Herb Chambers has proven to be a great neighbor to the community. From my time on the 4th of July committee, I know he pays for our fireworks. Pays for them out of his own pocket. He doesn't have to do that. What's going to go on with it? Look at the Audi dealership. Look at the Porsche dealership. It was the same thing, the expansion into it. That Porsche dealership looks a lot better than the crap mattress store that was there before the Audi dealership was there. The old CN Wood building looked like crap. So I had to look up today, how much is Herb Chambers paying in taxes to the town? It was a fair thing to look up. We have a lot of expenditures coming up, police station, schools. We need the tax revenue. The Audi dealership brings in $384,000 a year in just property tax revenue. Porsche, $275,000. The Honda dealership, $163,000. Currently, the Kia dealership's at $71,000, which would only go up with the addition of the building. We're reducing 2 by right uses for the other 2 buildings there. If they were to give up on it and rent out those 2 buildings, the Quick Copy and the Waltham Pest building, that would generate more traffic than there is currently. Those 2 buildings are only bringing in $14,000 and $13,000 respectively. We would see a gain from it. It's an advantage to the neighborhood. I've seen Mr. Vaughn's presentation numerous times at all different meetings. I think we've kicked this around long enough. I think we need a vote tonight, and I think it's a good improvement to the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeBona. Further comments? Mr. Rutherford. Good microphone over here.
1, 2, 3. Alex Rockfield, Precinct 5. So I took a look. I drove down Arlington Road a few days ago to try and get a sense of this, and it seems like the dealership's at the top of the hill, the school is at the high school's at the bottom, and then in the middle you have Arlington Road. So has there been any examination or analysis into how these updates could affect the water flow down the hill or cause any more potential flooding?
Mr. Vaughn?
This certainly has been. I mean, could I maybe ask our civil engineer, Chris Baragis, to
Certainly.
speak on that?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you. My name is Chris Sparagis. I'm a registered professional engineer here in the Commonwealth, practicing as a professional engineer since 1997. We worked with Herb Chambers on the Porsche Audi dealership, and we've been doing quite a bit of work on the Kia dealership proposal as well. The site will be designed in accordance with DEP's stormwater management regulations. There are 10 standards. We have to prove through our engineering calculations that we meet all 10 standards, and probably the most important one is making sure that we prove that we're not increasing off-site flooding impacts. So how do we do that? We have a detailed design in the works, and a really good idea of how we want to handle it. It involves infiltrating into stormwater chambers under the ground, and we will prove through our calculations and our previous experience on similar projects that we meet all 10 standards. This will be reviewed and gone through by the Conservation Commission and also by the town engineer, who's also a professional engineer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DiTucci?
One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dan DiTucci, Precinct 6. There seems to be a fear of car dealerships in this town for some reason. I mean, I don't really think that they cause a lot of traffic. I mean, once I buy my vehicle, I go to the dealer maybe once or twice a year for an oil change and whatever. So I think that the traffic that we see in that area, all the way down to the center, right up to the Billerica line, a lot of that has to do with, I think, commuter traffic. I think a lot of the traffic that comes down the Mall Road gets the 3A, it takes a left. So the traffic, there's many reasons why we have the traffic, and someday the state is going to solve the problem. Maybe. I support the dealership. Like I said earlier, more often than not, I will support existing businesses that have a good track record, like Herb Chambers. Anybody who talks about coming out of their street, taking a left or taking a right, not be able to get across, that's from every part of Route 3, through 3A. Whenever you have to take a turn to go through to the lane, to the next lane, there's going to be a problem. But I just don't see the traffic being caused by these dealerships. I just don't see it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pearson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Monty Pearson, Precinct 3. I was just wondering if, since there's a large group of people from the neighborhood, would it be possible for one of them to speak to us? Maybe like a representative speaker or something like that?
No, he wants to know if there's a representative of the neighborhood. Can you let one of the representatives of the neighborhood speak?
There are plenty of representatives for the neighborhood, and I will let them speak, but I will be following our bylaws, which requires that town meeting members speak first, and when they're done, I can recognize other residents of the town.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Warren?
One, two, three. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Hi, Chris Warren, Precinct 4. I think people have made a lot of good points. I am going to vote against this because what I see is 14 houses on Arlington Street, all assessed between $550, $625. You know, really cute neighborhood. I think they've already absorbed a lot of commercial development around them, and I don't think it's fair that they have to take on any more for the sake of the entire town. And I'm basing my decision on the golden rule. Thank you.
Ms. Angelo?
Pat Angelo, Precinct 5. Some years ago, this is with respect to what Barbara had to say. Some years ago, Bob, whatever his last name, I can't remember, from Reman Bronstein was in here. Bob Buckley made a presentation to us for a zoning change like this, showed us a beautiful building down where the Burlington Dodge was supposed to go. And I questioned him, and I said, well, can't anything go in there? Yes, but, you know, a beautiful building. So short time later, we almost wound up with Dave and Buster's. So when Dave and Buster's were coming in, everybody was having a heart attack over this. So what Barbara says is true. We're voting for a rezoning. We're not voting for a pretty building.
Thank you, Ms. Angelo. Mr. Kelly, 3 minutes, please, Jack.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I bet you didn't.
Still didn't hear it. Anyway, Jack Kelly, Precinct 7. At the risk of somebody moving the question and preventing the neighbors from speaking, I would like to bring a few things up. The fear that the neighbors have is that the RO lot fronting on Arlington Street, which has just been referred to in the presentation as 16 Arlington Road. My concern is they are asking for the planning board to put some conditions in the site plan for a property that does not include the RO land. My other concern is it needs to be put on the deed for that land. I asked a question of Attorney Vaughn Thursday night. I was digitally tuning into the information session. I asked how it could be enforceable if it was only in the conditions of the site plan. I wasn't satisfied with the answer, so I did some digging and research. I went into the assessor's property listing, and there is no listing for a 16 Arlington Road. That got me further curious. I went to the Registry of Deeds in search for 16 Arlington Road. There is no deed for 16 Arlington Road. So somehow they're going to have to create something that will put on notice a subsequent buyer or a lender that there is a restriction on the property. In first-year law school, Property 101 says if you do something to restrict land, you better record it in a way that both the subsequent buyer or the lender can access it and find it easily. Since there is no deed for 16 Arlington Road, I don't know how they do that. They're telling us that there is no plans for that RO lot. I don't know why they're holding on to it unless they do have some plans for it that we don't know about yet and they haven't figured out for themselves. So to correct that and give the residents the assurances that they're being promised, I don't see how we can do that tonight since a deed doesn't exist. So if the applicant wants to go forward with the vote tonight, my hope is we would vote against it. There's too many loose ends, too many questions, and a lot of stuff funny that just doesn't smell right.
Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Vaughn, please.
Yeah, so there is, through you, Mr. Moderator, to the speaker, there is a deed. Both the dealership property and the residential lot behind it was purchased by Herb Chambers, 93 Cambridge Street, LLC, in 2006. It's book 48577, page 63, and it includes both of those lots. So what we will do is we're going to make sure that the special permit decision is recorded on that deed so it runs with the land and affects all of it. If there's something else that the town council would like us to do as we get into it in terms of putting a further restriction or encumbrance on that residential piece, we're all fine with it. We will do whatever is requested to document our commitment. Our commitment is that which we have indicated to you in writing. It's what Board Member Covino had indicated as well, is that is what we're going to do. We are not going to rezone the RO lot, and that will run in perpetuity with the land. And similarly, we're not going to provide any access out to Arlington Road for this lot. So I'm not sure how much more clear I can be on that, respectfully.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Mr. Kelly.
Jack Kelly, Precinct 7. A condition put on the site plan for the property that is covered by the proposed amendment does not include that RO property. Yes, they purchased it as part of 93 Cambridge Street, but it doesn't identify separately what you're calling 16 Arlington Road. A condition on the site plan does not accomplish what the neighbors want. Absolute verification that that particular piece of property will not in the future be rezoned by either the Chambers Company or a subsequent buyer. You need to get something on the deed, not on the 93 Cambridge Street property. Otherwise, the promise to the residents has no power and is not enforceable.
Mr. Vaughn?
Respectfully, I disagree with that because the deed today includes both properties. That is what it's going to be recorded on. And in addition, we are happy to enter into whatever covenant or deed restriction might be determined necessary to further support that. So we're giving you our commitment and our word. I'm not sure how much clearer we can be about the residential lot. So.
Mr. Vaughn, I have a comment from Mr. Miller online that I guess I will have to read. David Miller, Precinct 4, I am an abutter to a different development that supposedly did everything according to the bylaws and regulations. Even with that, we wound up with water issues. The layout of the Arlington Road properties versus the auto dealership looks similar to me, and I cannot support this. Thank you, David. All right. Ms. Nash.
Mildred Nash, Precinct 3. I do hope that the abutters, because there are quite a few of them over there, do get a chance to speak before someone moves the question, because I think their sense of insecurity is well-rounded, as we've heard from some of the speakers. And I keep thinking of something which I have called over the years developmental sleight of hand, where you hear that there are going to be sidewalks, never mind that they don't connect with any sidewalks. But I think what's interesting, we hear about how this property is outdated because it's from 1970. But when I went to the Herb Chambers informational session and heard about the sidewalks, I said, well, could I have details? And he said there were going to be 4-foot sidewalks right beside the road. I walk up and down Cambridge Street, and I can tell you, 4-foot sidewalks you don't walk most of the day, because if there is a minimal traffic, people whiz by so that you're in danger of being sucked under the car. And if it's during the slow time, then you're in danger of dying from the fumes. And sidewalks that are 4 feet wide might work in 1970, but they don't work now. And when I was on the bike committee and we had a grant for $1 million+, we couldn't use it because the sidewalks put in by LL Bean and so forth had to be 10-foot sidewalks in order to get the grant. They put in 7-foot sidewalks, and when I called and said, this seems bad, this was before they laid the sidewalks, they were just out there where I could see and measured them, and they told me I should be glad I was getting 7 feet, so maybe we should be glad we're getting 4 feet on Cambridge Street. I don't know. But the second point, if we're waiting for the state to solve our problems, I think that's a bad idea, especially since the master plan and almost every traffic study that has been done has talked about the need for a traffic coordinator to complement the economic coordinator, because between the two of them, we might have access to a great deal of revenue that we don't get because we don't apply for it, and we need to solve the problems ourselves. I think we should listen to the no vote on the planning board that said, let's stick with doing what the planning board's supposed to do and don't fall for lures, which are quite sleight of handish. Thank you.
Mr. Vaughn, comment on the sidewalks?
Through the moderator to town meeting member, Ms. Nash, I think we've indicated before, we are comfortable with whatever width of sidewalk ultimately Mass DOT would support, if it can be wider than 4 feet. And I know that there's been folks that have indicated that they'd like to see the grass strip on the roadside, so there's a grass strip between the road and where the sidewalk would be. We're more than comfortable with that as well. At the end of the day, because it is under Mass DOT jurisdiction, they approve what happens within that layout. But if we can get a wider sidewalk and have the green space on the street side of the sidewalk, we are more than comfortable with that, and with the support of the town and whomever pushing that as well, we'd be happy to try to make that a reality.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Mr. Cormier. Up the back, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Cormier, Precinct 6. I've heard an awful lot of comments being made about the proponents for this particular project, and I just wanted to address the body in a manner that I've heard statements such as it's going to be great as far as tax revenue. It's you know, Mr. Chambers has been a great business partner to this community, and a lot of talk about him as a great person and business individual. I would hope this body wouldn't be swayed by the fact that just because Mr. Chambers is a very generous individual and has been, and I would fully expect him to continue to be, would not necessarily translate into this being a good decision to be made for this community. I would also defer mainly to the residents of the community and those abutting, and many have or many haven't, but I've been subject to development of residents on both sides of my property, only to find out that there were issues, after that development, and there was nothing that I could do. There was nothing that I could move back in time to stop what had happened to my property. So I would just urge this body to give deference to the residents, the abutting residents, and put yourselves in their shoes when you have an entity that's going to sit there and transform your immediate abutting area, and you feel powerless because someone is convincing this body that because of a tax revenue to this community that they should make a bad decision or a poor decision. So I would urge you to please not support this particular project, as much as I respect Mr. Chambers and Mark and the rest of the group. I just don't find that this is beneficial to this community at this time. So I would urge you to please not support it. Thank you.
Mr. Sinesi?
Adam Sinesi, Precinct 1. I have a question. Is it possible to get an opinion on whether there's flexibility to appeal down the line? If this gets approved, could they appeal the size of the building on the structure?
I can.
Mr. Vaughn?
I can speak to that. I mean, the process is that this is the first step in the process, the zoning amendment. So the zoning amendment would then need to be approved by the Attorney General, as any zoning amendment does, and then we need to go through a deliberative site plan and special permit review process and notice to abutters, public hearings, and everything that goes with it. And technically, I know I'm speaking against my own, but yes, I mean, the special permits are something that an abutter can challenge or appeal should they feel that we're not being responsible in terms of what we're proposing, how we're mitigating any impact, how we're addressing stormwater or drainage runoff, all of those things. So if, we feel very comfortable that with the development team that we have, Chris and his group, that we understand the dynamic of stormwater and drainage. And I know there's always going to be a project that says it's going to do it right, and then something happens. But we feel for this particular site, just given the nuances of it and what we know about the area, that we're reducing the amount of paved surface that's on the site. We're incorporating infiltration and whatnot. So we have an opportunity to make something better that's out there today. But short answer is yes, there's appeal rights.
Ms. LaRue, in response to Mr. Sinesi.
With all due respect, I'm not sure exactly that's what Mr. Sinesi was asking. I think what you were asking is if the proponent in the future could change something by going to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the answer is the Zoning Board of Appeals can change any dimensional number. So yes, it could be changed in the future by the Zoning Board of Appeals if it was something like the size of the building or a setback or anything that has a number. Thank you.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Board of Appeals can always grant a variance if it determines that one is warranted for anything, right? I mean, for someone that wants to go and, put another 2 levels on their home that doesn't comply with height setbacks, but I mean, that's just what the bylaw allows. I mean, anyone can seek a variance if they choose to, but that's not something that we're looking to do. I mean, we understand what the existing BG zoning requires, and that's why we've designed our building in a manner that we feel is compliant. So.
Yeah, please. No. Go, yeah, sorry, I'm losing names right out of my head. Nolan, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bill?
Schmidt.
Bill.
Herman
Bill.
Schmidt, yes.
Thank you, Bill. Nolan Glantz, Precinct 1. I've got 2 quick comments and then a question. The first regarding the RO property at 16, I guess it is, Arlington Road. Personally, I trust that they're not going to go try to pull a fast one by promising and then going around it. But even for those of you that don't trust that, and if they did, we're not approving any of that tonight. The fact that they're doing this zoning change has nothing to do with that property. If they try to do something, that will be them to make a request, come back to town meeting, and at that meeting, we can debate it and vote it down. So I have 0 problem, 100% confidence that we're not doing anything with that 16 property. Tonight, it has no risk whatsoever. It'll be a future debate that we can easily vote down if they tried to, and I don't think they're going to try to. The second thing is, there's an existing dealership there, and people have said it's not a great dealership, not great looking, et cetera. I really like what they've done at the down the street with the Porsche and Audi. I like the idea of making it better. I don't like the idea of it becoming the Norwood Auto Mile of Burlington. That being said, I like the idea of improvements. But my question is, I've seen quite a bit of the back and forth where it came with an idea, the abutters have concerns, then I think there was quite a bit of process that I was not personally involved in of hearing the concerns and trying your best to address them. And I guess, are you aware of any remaining concerns that the neighbors have that you have been either unwilling to accept or unwilling to mitigate, or that you feel is disadvantageous that you don't want to do? In other words, what's the source of disagreement? Have they come up with things that you've said no to? I guess I don't get it. Is there anything that you think that you're not doing? Thank you.
Mr. Vaughn.
I could attempt to address that. I mean, certainly at the last town meeting that we had, if you recall, we ended up postponing it because we did receive a letter that day that certain residents had signed and indicated concern. Notwithstanding our intent to reach out, which we did do previously, we weren't able to have that audience. So we did have a neighborhood meeting at the dealership back in October, I believe it was, and we felt we had a very transparent, robust dialogue with everyone that had signed that petition, and I think we were able to get across what we were proposing, and I guess more importantly what we weren't proposing, because there seemed to be a lot of misinformation out there about what the project was. You know, what I can say is I think that, you know, a few of the neighbors immediately behind the property have concerns about what the potential impact might be. We've heard a lot about the drainage and, you know, flooding a basement, you know, concern, which we don't feel, I'm not going to say it's not a legitimate concern, it's always a legitimate concern, but we don't feel it's a concern that is going to be realized in this particular instance. I know there were concerns expressed about just traffic in general, because that section of Route 3A Cambridge Street can be a busy roadway, and certainly we understand that. I think we did try to get across that an automobile dealership is not a high traffic generator. It's one of the lower traffic generators in terms of daily trips. There's a dealership that's there today, so it's not as if we're looking to bring a new use to the site. We're looking to modernize it and make for a more enjoyable experience for customers and more enjoyable for you all, you know, driving by and looking at it. But that's not necessarily something that increases traffic. And then, you know, we heard that there was a concern that we were going to be using Arlington Road or Sunset for test drives. And I think anyone that's familiar with Arlington, it's obviously a dead-end street. There's no rational reason for anyone to be using that as a test drive route, and it's never has been for Herb Chambers and never will be. And the same with Sunset. Our test drive route is to go down Cambridge Street to the highway interchange, Mall Road, and down into that area. So I think, you know, for a number of folks, I think hearing that and seeing the visuals of what the project was, I think address their concerns, but I do know that a few folks, you know, behind are still, you know, not maybe on board. So hopefully that answered your question. But
Mr. Kelly, point of information, what do you need?
Jack Kelly, Precinct 7. Given that the question was asked about the opinion of the butters, could they speak for themselves rather than Mark
Mr. Kelly,
Vaughan
I was
speaking
going to
for
get
them?
to that, please. I haven't forgotten them. I'm not going to let them cut them out.
Okay,
You can ask me again, I'll give you the same answer.
good. I'm glad that you're going to make sure that they get to speak.
You always wanted me to be consistent with my rulings, Jack. I'm being consistent. Ms. Santoon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michelle Huntoon, Precinct 1. Kind of piggybacking off of what Mr. Glantz was saying, my question is along the lines of, I understand that you've done more outreach with the neighbors, and it sounds like a lot of that has just involved giving them information, but I'm wondering if the plans that Herb Chambers has come up with have changed at all as you've heard their concerns, or what actions you're going to take, because it seems like their concerns are very valid, but also the business interest is extremely valid. You have a very outdated facility. That makes sense. What efforts have there been to find a compromise or a middle ground or make concessions to what they're looking for, whether it be bigger sidewalks or you know, agreeing to certain aesthetics? Just wondering whether there can be some solution that does work for both parties. Thank you.
Mr. Vaughn.
through the moderator to the speaker, I mean, certainly we're committed to addressing any and all concerns that have been raised, and we will continue to be in terms of, we've committed to, the lighting being turned off to low mode security lighting during the evening hours to make sure it wasn't going to be lit up. We're not going to have any outdoor paging system, things of that nature, operational related issues. I know that we've committed to the sidewalk in terms of making sure that we were going to provide that expansive sidewalk because we heard a lot about pedestrian safety concerns. So in effect, I mean, with our sidewalk, there's going to be, except for one small area where there's not going to be a piece of sidewalk off of our property, there's going to be continuous sidewalk along that section of Cambridge Street. And we're certainly willing to, work with the town about that missing link as well as part of the future permitting process. So, we've tried to be responsive to everything that's come up, but yeah.
Is that Mr. Stacci up the back?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joanne Fristacci, Precinct 3. This is my neighborhood. I want to just briefly touch on a couple of the most important points that the abutters have made. This isn't petty. It's not about, whether cars are going to drive up Arlington Road. These people, and I wish you could see the map, have easements in each of their backyards. So utilities, sewer, whatever, I'm not an expert at easements, but they will be sharing their backyards, in essence, with this dealership. So I just, it's also conservation, not conservation, it's also wetlands. So I wish that we could show that map because I think you would all see and have horror that if your backyard was now going to be an easement, in the back quarter of the yard for a car dealership that is an automotive use that is not allowed in the current zoning. So I guess I just would like you all to consider having a backyard that you're sharing, that you have an easement through, and it is through all of the houses on that street, that you now have to deal with sharing a sewer system with this different kind of zoned use that our town doesn't allow for. So I just feel like as a respectful consideration to neighbors who have to abut a dealership and are the only people in this town who abut a dealership, we really should, again, listen carefully to those serious concerns. And I'm voting no on this. Thank you. I also forgot to talk about stormwater. Our neighborhoods have spent tens of thousands of dollars remediating with, French drains, sump pumps, backups to sump pumps, backups that fail, so generators. It really runs in the like 20,000 range to protect your home from water. Thank you.
Mr. Vaughn, comment?
If I could, I'm going to have Mr. Sparagus address the topic of easement.
Would you like the map up that shows the property?
That's not necessary, Mr. Moderator. I think I can explain it rather simply, unless you would like to.
Well, I always like to look at the maps myself, so.
By all means.
No, here's the map that they have. Okay.
And through you, Mr. Moderator, if you want to refer to the site plan that was in our presentation packet, that would be...
That's what we're
okay.
trying to get there. Can we go back to the display? get it on theirs, Amy, on your computer, like you did with me before.
Technology. You got it out. Okay, so I will, hold on, just let's make it big, full screen. There we go.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Moderator, for
ahead.
the...
The only one we've got.
Mr. Moderator, I can definitely speak to the question of the easement with this plan.
This is the map we have in their presentation. If they don't have the other one, we don't have the access, we're not getting through to the town website and getting stuff up. You can send it to me all you want, I still can't get it up there right now. This is the map we have, I'm sorry. Could you please see what we can do with this plan?
Sure. May I proceed, Mr. Moderator?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Moderator, for the speaker. The existing Kia dealership is this shape here. Arlington Road is along the top of the plan. These are the most direct abutters at number 18 and number 20. There is an existing sewer easement that comes through our property and then along the backs of number 18 and number 20. And this sewer easement takes sewerage down to this old right-of-way and then out towards the high school. The easement also has the sewer pipe that runs through our property, and we can simply tie into the sewer main on our own property. We will not be performing any work on any abutting property. So that's the answer to that question.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's get to the residents here. Let's hear from some of your concerns directly, please. Go ahead, ma'am.
So these are the residents of Arlington Road in the surrounding area. Sharon Laurie, 20 Arlington Road. So now, as you just heard, that sewer system in the easement is number 20. Number 18, Jimmy, where are you? He was here. He must have gone to pick up his grandson. You're not hearing the truth today, and it's very upsetting for us. They have not tried to work with us. The planning board asked them several times if they would donate 16 Arlington Road to the town of Burlington. Several times they have stated no. A covenant is only good between you and God. It is not legal. 16 Arlington Road represents future, their future. When 3A is a mess, no one can drive their cars anyway, because at the high school, it's going to open up into 2 lanes. It's going to become a speedway. Once it becomes a speedway, Herb Chambers, what should we do? They're thinking in the future. Well, let's come back to the board and let's see if we can get this open up. Or let's see if we can get cars here. For example, the Porsche dealership started off as you simply park your cars. You simply park your cars. What is that dealership today? This humongous thing. And another thing everyone should remember is you're talking about building a car dealership in back of residential space. Does any of you want your kids, want yourself, or want your parents, or anyone that you know to have a dealership in your backyard? Because that is what we're up against. As far as mitigating the stormwaters, well, they can try. You're right, they can try. But if they fail, and there may be a strong chance that they'll fail, then who gets stuck footing the bill? We do, the residents. We pay taxes just like Herb Chambers pays his tax revenue. Yes, we don't give you hundreds and thousands of dollars a year, but we are law-abiding citizens. And on that note, I thought the bylaws were in place to protect the citizens, the residents of Burlington. Now, Herb Chambers is coming up here and asking you politely to change it. Like some of us agree with this, we do not agree with this. We want our peace. Arlington Road is a dead end. Arlington Road also goes up to Sunset. It connects there. It goes down to Mildred. It goes on to Stony Brook. It goes on to Bedford. It goes on to Barber. Okay, so when Herb Chambers says they're not doing something right now, yes, right now they're not doing it. But think of the future and what makes sense. And that's why we're here today. All of these people aren't here because we dislike Herb Chambers. We think they're great. We think Herb Chambers donated to the community. That's great. So did we. And when I personally bought my home, I bought my home to retire because our homes are nestled in the woods. And I didn't want all this craziness around me. I have 4 kids, okay? So I wanted just peace and quiet. And that's what I have today. And that's what they're trying to take away. They're trying to change a bylaw to suit them. They have no regards for the residents that already live there. We abutted next to commercial space. We did not abut next to any automotive space. And so I ask you to respectfully consider to vote no, because we, the residents, should be heard, because none of you, I'm sure, want an auto dealership in your backyard. And I'll give it to the next person.
Let's be brief, and please bring up something new. We're hearing a lot of repetition here.
I'm Guy Moore. I live at 1 Arlington Road. I live directly across the Mercedes-Benz dealership, and they've been nothing but nuisances for however many years they've been there. They get deliveries in the middle of the night for all the parts for the cars they're going to repair that next day. We had to go, I was calling the police in the beginning. Jack worked with one of the town meeting members. We had to videotape them so they could see the truck, the noise that they were making, waking us up almost every night. They may have done some things, but every now and then they're still doing it because they have to get their parts. They're not supposed to work outside operating hours, but they do. Trucks come in all hours of the night, flatbeds and tow trucks delivering cars, whether they're new cars or broken cars. That happens on a regular basis. And their delivery trucks that deliver the cars, they sometimes stop right on Cambridge Street, blocking a whole lane of traffic. I call the police often. Sometimes they don't get there before they leave, and they're taking the cars off, going the opposite direction on Cambridge Street to get into their driveway. I no longer call the police. I take pictures, and I print them out, and I give them to the building department gentleman, and he'll eventually write a letter to them saying they're breaking, I don't know, the bylaws. And that's happened as recent as 3 weeks ago. So they've been doing this for years, breaking their bylaws, working outside of hours, creating a tremendous amount of noise and danger, and this car alarm's going off all the time. So I don't live as close to Herb Chambers as most of these people do, but they're going to hate their life even more if they enlarge in their business and have more delivery trucks, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, with chains. You hear the hydraulic lifts. It's a nightmare. So hopefully that's something new.
Excuse me, I have a question for you. Which property were you talking about with these issues? Are you talking about the Mercedes dealership?
I'm talking about my personal experience with a dealership that promised all sorts of things, and they've been nothing but a nuisance all these years.
Okay, thank you. We need to make sure what we were talking about.
The Mercedes dealership is not owned by Herb Chambers.
Correct.
Those are, a lot of those things that this gentleman is saying are untruths about Mercedes.
Well,
That is false.
We're not going to get in a shouting match over here, folks. Mr. Vaughn, do you have any comments to the issues that have been raised?
I think, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moderator, that the Mercedes is not a Herb Chambers dealership. So I want to make that abundantly clear, I think, as members of the body have. We have a location in Billerica where we do the offloading of vehicles. It's a property that was acquired by Herb Chambers so that vehicles can be offloaded there, so car carriers that are not parked on the street. I understand that may be an issue with Mercedes, but you know, we don't do that, and we're committed to not having that happen. So with respect to what, through the moderator to Mrs. Lore, and have great respect for the speaker, you know, no one has really asked us to donate. I mean, the residential lot has taxable value for the town. I mean, it's a buildable residential lot. I'm not sure where this notion of donating the land has come from. I mean, I think that we're, in effect, giving you the assurances you need that the land is not going to be developed for anything but RO purposes, and there's not going to be a road through it. We'll put that in the form of a deed restriction, and the town can still get taxable monies from the lot. So I think that it accomplishes the same thing, but provides benefit for everyone. But
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Yes, some further question?
Excuse me, Tom Daniel, Sunset Drive. What makes Herb Chambers any different than the Mercedes dealership? They have car carriers coming up to pick their used cars up, and they park on the state highway, blocking traffic. What about parts being delivered in the middle of the night or excessive noises? What's going to make them different?
Mr. Vaughn, can you address that?
those are operational concerns that we as a team are committed to making sure that we do in a manner that is respectful of our location in proximity to abutters. So, I mean, I don't know what the experience with Mercedes has been, but I can tell you that what we're committed to do is to make sure that those operational issues are not issues that are problematic to the neighborhood. I mean,
I'm not talking about Mercedes dealership. I'm talking about the Audi dealership, where they park their car carriers out in front of the street on the state highway to pick up used cars.
Okay.
So I just
Somebody
have
else
a
over
quick,
here?
I just have a quick question, and I'll give this to the next
I
person.
think you've spoken enough. Pass it on to someone else who has a question, please. Everybody gets a chance before you get to speak twice.
All right, so her question, I'll use as the start of mine, is to the planning board, did you not ask them to donate that piece of property at a meeting?
Ms. LaRue.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so that was her question. But I want to start off by saying that the text amendment reads that Herb Chambers could buy more, the way it reads with this amendment is he could buy more contiguous properties and further expand, and even ask for increases to variances to increase size. Now, I live downhill. I'm not in a butter, Sumeo, by the way, Precinct 3. But I live downhill, and the wetlands are in the back of my property. Any failure of automotive waste could come down that hill and impact my land. Now, you say that doesn't happen in these regulations, but I lived through the EPA thing where there was a gas spill that came down from Cambridge Street, that they had to put wells on Anna Road and go, the DEP was in everybody's house. There's a reason that there's no automotive next to residences. I bought my house knowing that I was not next to an automotive, and I think changing the law or the zoning law is not right.
Thank you. Yes, sir, up here.
Wait.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator, Mr. Moderator. My name is James McNiff. I live in Precinct 3. I live at the village of Maple Ridge, which is right off of Corporate Drive, which as I leave and exit my home, I face the Kia dealership every day as I go through the area. If you know what's happened in my area, which is a planned district development, we've had a 271-room hotel built on the property.
Excuse me, sir.
Oh, no.
You need to speak directly to the project that's in front of you.
Okay.
Please.
I will. I'm in favor of the Herb Chambers. Herb Chambers is and will continue to be a critical part of the Burlington community. It's been mentioned about the taxes, so I won't bring that up again. But starting with the Honda dealership 35 years ago, he is part of Burlington. He's not separate from it. And I've trusted his investment and his time and his effort in building this community. And again, I pass that Kia dealership every day, and those two buildings need to go. And agreeing with our member from Precinct 3, the 95 and 97 are eyesores on our road, and they're going to make that in a better position than it is today. So I ask that you vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we've kicked this around for an hour. Does anyone have anything new to say? New, that I haven't heard before? We'll get back over here. You've had some time. Let's get back to the town meeting members. Mr. Davison.
Three. Doug Davison, Precinct 2, and Vice Chair of Ways and Means. So I'll try not to be repetitive, but from my standpoint, we spend so much of our time looking at the budget and what it is we need to do and what we need to be thinking about. We have major capital projects on the way. We also have major pressure from increases in cost in trash pickup and construction materials, and certainly people want raises every year. So the pressure on the budget has never been greater. And this is, certainly we need to consider the tax revenue side of this. We also need to consider just what message we're sending to the greater business community about how we are as a community to work with. So there was a time that we could just be Burlington and we could lay down the law and say, well, if you want to be here, these are the things you have to do. There are a lot of communities around us who have awakened and decided that it's pretty nice to have 60% of their budget paid for by the commercial properties. And so they're competing now. And we need to continue to take care of our reputation. We don't need to lay down for people, but they're not asking to build a new car dealership. We have an existing car dealership that they want to improve. They're not asking to have some new business who we're not familiar with come in. Herb Chambers has a great reputation in this community. He has multiple dealerships, and anything he does at this dealership that sours this community on him will hurt him across his businesses. So from my standpoint, I would urge you to support it. I think we do always have to have that balance, and sometimes we may not pay as much attention to that as we need to these days. Thank you.
Ms. Wang?
Siobhan Wong, Precinct 4. Do we have anyone from any town department who can tell us have there been any citations in recent years of any Herb Chambers dealership related to any type of inappropriate hazardous waste removal or disposal, given some of the concerns from the residents? Thank you.
Is there anybody here who can speak to that? Well, in my previous lifetime, I could have, but I don't keep up on it anymore. So I guess the answer is no. Mr. Caskey. Run down here, microphone, please. Folks, when you're going to speak, please
Gary
stand up quickly so that these folks can see you.
Gary Caskey, Precinct 6. Move the question.
Question has been moved. It's not a debatable issue. All those in favor of moving the question? All those opposed? It's clear 2/3 majority in favor of moving the question. In that case, let's move on. On to the vote on the issue. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It's 2/3. Raise them high. All those opposed? Well, just for your information, there's 23 opposed. That would leave 65 in favor. So we can have a roll call. We've had enough people say so. All right, so we need 7 people to stand and for a roll call. All right, that's enough. Let's go. Roll call.
There you go.
Okay.
One more.
Bob Aloisi, right here. He's in?
Yeah, he's here.
All right. Okay. Nope, this is not a public meeting. This is a town meeting. Sorry, it's not. We're following the rules. This is how the town meeting works. The question has been moved. It's been asked, it's been voted on. It's been asked for a roll call vote. So we will go through it, one town meeting member at a time, and they will tell us how they're voting. We'll start with Precinct 1. Mimi Bix Highland.
In favor.
William Boyven. Yes. Brad Bond.
Yes.
Christopher Campbell.
Yes.
Laurie Glantz. Gone. And who's this other guy? Forgot his name already? Nolan Glantz. What was your vote?
Yeah.
Thank you. Donna, no, she's not here. Michael Hardy.
No.
Michelle Huntoon. Bruce Morey.
Yes.
Gregory Ryan.
Yes.
Maureen Ryan.
Yes.
Adam Sinessi.
No.
Dina Wasaf.
Yes.
David Wadilla.
Yes.
Precinct 2. Catherine Byer.
Yes.
Kevin Colucci.
Yes.
Doug Davison.
Yes.
Angela Hannafin. Daniel Hannafin. Jeremy Harrington.
Yes.
Kristen Murphy Currier. Patricia O'Brien.
No.
Michelle Papano.
Yes.
George Papagiannis.
Yes.
Cynthia Phillips.
No.
Myrna Saltman.
No.
Christine Scola. Kimberly Trainer. Laura no, never mind, she's not here. Precinct 3, Sean Connors. Jeffrey DeBona. Richard DeBona. Sherry Ellis. Joanne Fustacci. Lords Rosanna Janeo. Stephen Marchese. No vote. Where is he?
In the back.
What was your vote? I didn't hear you. Thank you, Stephen. You know, my wife got hearing aids. I guess I'm next on the list. Gary Mercier. Steve Moran. Mildred Nash. Paul Noonan. Monty Pearson. Brian Pupa. Daniel Rasky. Roger Riggs. Precinct 4. Nancy Bonacera. Karen Cooper. Mark Gerbrands. William Lusano. Tamara Maniscalco. Frank Monaco. Megan Noychik. Laura Nichols. Becky Norum. Eileen Sickler. Kevin Spielberger. Christine Warren. Sally Willard. Chiffon Wong. David Miller. Is that a no on David?
No, I think.
Could you confirm that, please?
Yes, that's a no.
That's a no, all right.
He's got to sign up. Thank you, David.
Okay, Precinct 5. Pat Angelo. Craig Callahan. Thomas Carlson. Christine Concession. Phyllis Neufeld. Bonnie Nichols. Michelle Prendergast. Alex Whitfield. David Tate. Frank Ursino. Z. Wang. Richard Wing. Sarah Walensky. Ernest Zetabalotny. Ernie, you still here? Ernie's gone. Precinct 6, Robert Eloisi. Roger Bell. Ryan Clement. Daniel Collins. John Cormier. Daniel DeTucci. Elizabeth DeTucci. Daniel DeTucci Jr. Darrell Interests. Gary Caskey. Blaze Lieber. Rose Manny. Ed Parsons. Nicole Sprinkle Cadillac. William Trulagan. Okay, Precinct 7, Shomeri Abramson. Adrian Callahan. Sarah Colley. Julie Cullen. Betsy Hughes. Jack Kelly. Scott Martin. Ryan McSheffrey. Ronald Riley. Excuse me, Ryan McSheffrey, your vote was? Yes, I checked the wrong box, sorry. Ronald Riley was a yes. Jonathan Sachs? Anthony Salamone? Paul Schwartzman? David Van Camp? David Webb? Mark Woods?
What was Paul?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, there are two people in the,
What?
yeah. He's the new member.
Oh, all right, Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
You voted yes.
And then Carrie,
You're up here. Okay, it'll be yes. Did I miss anybody else?
yes, Carrie Riley's precinct 7.
Carrie Riley. Is there a Carrie Riley here? Yes. And how's your vote?
7 and no.
You're a no.
Okay, figure it out.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10. No, they do not. There being 64 in favor, or 65 in favor, 64 in favor, 35 opposed, the motion fails.
Take your sheet.
All right, let's move on. We've got business to finish. What do I do with my motions? All right, let's be quiet. If you're leaving, please quickly move on. We've got business to attend to. Article 8, to replenish the reserve fund. It has been moved and seconded and by the Ways and Means Committee and is as printed in the warrant. Mr. Davison, please. Mic down here, please.
Three. I think it's working now.
Okay, sorry.
He's going to nig that one on for a little bit. Leave it on, please.
So, Ways and Means discussed Article 8. It's the replenishment of the reserve fund. We voted 13-0-0 in favor. This is a $100,000 article, and the money comes from free cash. This is something that we do every year in January. This fund is initially funded in May for $200,000. Once free cash is certified, usually sometime in October, we then come back in January and add an additional $100,000 to bring the balance up to $300,000. It's not used very often at all. It's really just kind of an emergency fund. We haven't spent anything out of it this year. At the end of the budget year, any money that's not used goes right back into free cash. So it's an emergency fund. The last time it was used was in fiscal year 21, and we spent $110,000 for a major sewage blockage on Middlesex Turnpike.
Questions on this article? Mr. Cormier.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Comey, Precinct 6. Essex, every year, every town meeting that we do this, and I request that we have just a simple sheet to show the current free cash amount, what has been taken out, so at the end of this meeting, we know exactly what's left and where it went. And I just don't see it. Could someone please tell me what's currently in the free cash, and at the end of this meeting, if we vote in all the free cash transfers, what we'll be left with? Thank you.
Mr. Denizio, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Denizio, Assistant Town Administrator. Mr. Cormier, and for everybody, free cash was certified this fall at $32,558,569. And all the warrants tonight, if they all pass, would be a total of $1,708,703, and that means we would have a balance of just over $30 million, $30,849,866.
Further questions on this article? Seeing none, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash from the sum of $1,424,514 to the Water Stabilization Fund has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee and is as printed in the warrant. Question, Mr. Davison, please.
So, again, this is, since January of 2019, this has been an annual article. If you remember this body, when we passed the MWRA plan, we approved an annual increase in the water bill in order to help fund the infrastructure of adding MWRA. This is that money. So the reason we have to do this transfer at this time is because as the money is collected from your water bill, it goes into the general fund. Then when it gets certified as free cash, we need to transfer it over to the Water Stabilization Fund. In May, we'll see another warrant that asks us to then transfer this money to actually use it to spend it for the cost associated with the MWRA project.
Questions on this article? Seeing none? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 10. Been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee, and it is as printed in the warrant to see if the town will transfer money from free cash to the opioid settlement fund. Mr. Davison, please.
So this is a transfer in the amount of $134,189. We voted 13-0-0 to approve this transfer. The state sued and won a settlement from a collection of opioid manufacturers, distributors, and pharmacies. The town signed on to that lawsuit, and we will receive settlement payments from it. This is the FY23 payment. It's the first payment. We expect, I believe, around $33,000 each year until fiscal year 39. The money must be spent on substance abuse prevention, treatment, and recovery programs. So it came into the general fund. Now we're asking to transfer it out of free cash and into this new opioid settlement fund. It will be spent under the direction of a town committee that's comprised of members of the Board of Health, Youth and Family Services, and others.
Thank you, Mr. Davison. Questions on the article? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 11, Transportation Infrastructure Fund. It's been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee. It is as printed in the warrant, but it's to see if the town will transfer the sum of $24,800 from receipts received for appropriation to the local transportation account. Mr. Davison.
So Ways and Means supported this 13-0-0. Another similar article as last year, just as a reminder for new folks. The state collects 20 cents per rideshare ride that occurs within the state. Half of the money, so 10 cents, goes back to the town where the ride originated. This year it's $24,800, which means unbelievably that there were 250,000 rides that started in Burlington last year, which is 680 a day. That's crazy. That is up from 148,000 rides the previous year. The money must be used for transportation-related expenses. We have elected so far to use this to offset the expenses of the rideshare program that Burlington hosts. That was put in place when we discontinued the B-Line.
Thank you, Mr. Davison. Questions on this? Seeing none? Ms. Sickler.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Eileen Sickler, Precinct 4. Can you tell me what the expenses have been in the last year and what the cash balance is now? Thank you.
Quickly, Mr. Denizio.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The balance to start the year in that fund was a round number, $170,000. Through our operating budget, we appropriated $100,000 to support the program. We've spent about $73,000 to date, and our ridership it's costing us about just over $10,000 a month the last 6 months.
Further questions? See if there's somebody else I've missed. Ms. Warren?
Chris Warren, Precinct 4. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to Mr. Davison, could you run the daily number of rides by one more time? I thought you said 448, and I don't think I heard that correctly.
No, I believe it is 680 rides per day originate in Burlington. Amazing.
Is there any insight into that?
We're not, that's not on our agenda, Chris.
Okay, all right.
People like Uber. I don't know. Or Lyft. Sorry. Yeah. You Lyft stockholders.
Anything further? Seeing none, again. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 12, to see if the town will, it's been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000 for the purchase of a van for the Recreation Department. Mr. Davison, please.
Ways and Means supported this 1300. We try not to have capital articles such as this until May. However, this is to replace a vehicle that failed inspection. If we wait until May to fund it, we won't have it for the summer months, and the order time on this is long. If you look at the backup pictures, there's significant rusting of the frame. The director of central maintenance, who is responsible for the fleet, is recommending replacement. The vehicle is on the 10-year capital replacement plan and has been pushed back a few times over the last years because we thought we had more life in it, and so now we've come to the end of that life. It's relatively low mileage, but it's very old at 19 years old. It's a cargo van, a driver and a passenger. It's not used for transporting people. It's used for carrying equipment to various recreation department programs and, chairs, tables, set up for various programs that they run around town. So it is a critical need.
Capital budget, take a position on this. Microphone down here, please.
Mark Woods, Capital Budget, Precinct 7. We didn't take a position. We were expecting to discuss this for May warrant. As been pointed out, it fell apart sooner than later, so we didn't vote on this.
Thank you. Does the Recreation Commission have anything they wish to add? You don't have to. You can. Don't let me dissuade you. We're here to have complete deliberation. Any questions? Any questions for the Recreation Commission? Betsy. Ms. Hughes. Could ask them a question so they won't feel they wasted their time.
Great. Betsy Hughes, Precinct 7. I'm doing this just for you, Mr. Moderator. Actually, in looking at the backup, it said that this 2005 vehicle had 39,000 miles. Is that correct? So it means it goes 2,000 miles a year about in mileage. Clearly, the pictures show why it flunked the inspection. But I just wonder, for 2,000 miles a year, whether there are other uses in maybe other departments of the town. When it's not being used, it could be used. It just feels like it's $50,000 that maybe we could be using some of that elsewhere.
Brendan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We do share the van. Youth and Family Services has used it over the years for their NIPM program, which takes the mini bikes out. We've shared it with Facilities Department. They move things around with it different times of the year. So that's the custodians and other facilities related activities have used it over the years. It has low miles, but a lot of hours on it because it stays in town most of the time.
Anything further from Mr. Egan? Seeing none? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Article 13. It's been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee. This is a firefighter waiver of maximum age restriction. Who is speaking on this? Mr. Denizio, I see reaching for a microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We just want to quickly just point out that what this article, the purpose of this article is to get a waiver from the maximum age requirement that is through civil service laws. Mass General Law 31, Section 58A requires that a firefighter be the maximum of 31 years old when they take the entrance exam. The person that we're looking to get a waiver for missed that by a few months, took the exam, passed, got a good score, and is currently working as a paramedic. So what we're doing is asking for town meeting approval to request the legislature to waive the minimum age by a few months so that we can hire someone that would still have to pass all of the other requirements that we have for hiring anybody, including a physical examination, mental examination, all of that. So just wanted to clear it out in case there was any confusion about that. Thank you.
Questions from the body? Seeing none? All those in favor? Opposed? Passed. Article 14. It's been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to see if the town will authorize the Select Board to sell, convey, and otherwise transfer the property and structures located at 119 South Bedford Street. Mr. Denizio, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So we're happy to be back here for the final step, completing a process that started in May of 2022 when this board approved the town to purchase one of the what is commonly referred to as the old military houses along South Bedford Street. Those homes are deed restricted and they're count as our affordable units and they're homeowner occupied. So at the time when this unit became available, the town had to make a choice to either take the right of first refusal to buy the property or to sell it to somebody. The home was in condition that wasn't great to be sold, and through lots of deliberation with the Housing Partnership Committee and the Select Board, and even this body, the choice was made to buy the property, rehab it, and then come back for approval to sell it. So that's the point we're at now. We bought the property in June of 2022. A town meeting approved $350,000. Property ultimately was purchased for $335,000. After that, the Housing Partnership Committee approved a not to exceed budget of $165,000 to rehab the property. That work has been done, and now we're back here asking for approval for the Select Board to sell the property. The selling price will be decided based on the formula, just like when we bought it. We estimate right now, given the fact that the interest rates have increased so much, as the interest rates go up, the maximum sale price for affordable units comes down. So right now we're estimating about $320,000. So not the best deal if you're flipping properties, but we do get to keep an affordable unit, homeowner occupied, 3-bedroom unit on our rules, and have a great deal for someone to purchase it in town. So happy to take any questions.
Questions from the body? Seeing none? Let's vote on it. All those in favor? Opposed? Declare 2/3. It's more than 2/3. Article 15. It's been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee. It is as printed in the warrant. It is to request that the ZBA reject Windview Heights 2 in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts take notice of town meeting's majority opposition to the project. Ms. Cawley, I guess it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah Cawley. I'm from Precinct 7. I'm going to try not to take up too much of your time, but I know that there's a wide range of knowledge on the topic of Windview Heights 2 in the room. So I do kind of just want to get everybody educated on what it is, some of the history, some of the concerns, and what a vote in favor of this warrant article means. So what is Windview Heights 2? It's a 24-unit, age-restricted, 55-plus condo development. The location is 35 Mountain Road, which is within a residential neighborhood of mostly single-family homes. The 24 units would be in one main structure with parking underneath and an additional parking area next to it. It is proposed to be built on the top of a hill directly abutting Little Brick Conservation Land. The access was originally proposed via Richardson Road up through Harriet, which is, if anybody knows where Sullivan Funeral Home is, the corner of Wynn and Harriet, that's where that is, through the existing condos known as Windview Heights. I know that's confusing. So there is an existing condo up there called Windview Heights. The development we're talking about tonight is Windview Heights 2. Because of the severe slope of the area, a winding S-curve, one-way in, one-way out access road would need to be built on an area with heavy amounts of ledge. If anyone is not familiar with that area, it is called Mountain Road for a reason. The application process will be going through the state's Local Initiative Program, or LIP, which is also known as a Friendly 40B. Burlington is over the 10% threshold for affordable housing. I believe we're at about 13.5% right now, so we're considered a safe harbor community. So developers can't go through a standard 40B process. This is a friendly 40B, which means the developer and the town can negotiate and compromise on any changes they see, rather than a more strict standard 40B where the town would not have as much say. Also, 25% of the units, so 6 of the 24, would be affordable. And also the Zoning Board of Appeals, the ZBA, would be the sole comprehensive permit granting authority for the town. So Planning Board, Conservation, Board of Health, all boards which would normally have a pretty heavy hand in a development like this can be consulted by the ZBA, but they do not have a formal role in the process. And I want to say before moving forward, I think the majority of us can agree that Burlington needs more affordable housing. We need more senior housing. We need more diverse housing options just in general. It's possible to believe that and truly want that, and also think that this project is just a bad idea, it's unsafe, and it's not good for the town. So both of those things can be true. Okay, next slide. So this is the timeline. I know this is a lot. I'm not going to get into every single detail, but I did just want you all to have a sense of the history of this project. It's a long one. It goes back to 2019, and I'll try not to get too much in the weeds here. But like I said, the original access was through Richardson Road and the existing Windview Heights condos. For a LIP application through the state requires the select board provide a letter of support for the project with the application. The first time that was requested was March 2019. The discussion at that select board meeting lasted about 12 minutes. There was no public participation. The vote happened the same night, and it was a 5-0-0 in favor of the letter of support. Moving ahead a couple of spots to when it finally got to the ZBA after it was approved by the state. Before I say that, I did just want to say, that when the LIP application went to the state, there would have been a 30-day period of public comment. The select board would have been notified that it had opened, and then they are to notify the public. The public was never notified of that 30-day period, therefore the state never heard from anybody from the public because we weren't aware of that. That is why since then changes have been made to certain bylaws in town around public hearings, specifically around notifications and the fact that votes can't happen on the same night that a public hearing is closed. These changes were made as a direct result of this process, and they're made to benefit the public and Burlington residents so that we can be informed and that the process is transparent. So when it finally got to the ZBA after it went to the state, it was January 2021. Several residents of Richardson Road and Windview Heights and the existing Windview Heights condos spoke up against it. There was also a lawyer present for the Windview Heights condos who presented legal questions about whether they had actual access legally through that way. Public hearing continued a few more times. And finally, in June 2021, Burlington's Town Council presented the opinion that the developer does not have legal easement access through that area. So basically, Town Council agreed with the Windview Heights lawyer. And then moving on, it kept getting delayed, pushed off. February 2022, at the ZBA's recommendation, because of the lack of legal access, the applicant withdrew his proposal without prejudice. So this is the more recent history. In December 2022, the applicant returned to ask for a new letter of support from the select board. Because of the change in access, the state asked for a new letter. At that public hearing, 8 people spoke up with concerns. Nobody spoke in favor of the project. A month later, January 2023, the public hearing continued. As more people in town got wind of this project, more people started speaking up, including members of other boards and committees in town. At that meeting, Select Board heard from 16 people with strong concerns and opposition. Nobody spoke in favor. 2 weeks later, after the public hearing closed, a vote was held. Select Board voted 2 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstained, with 1 member absent. Because this did not meet the 51% that it needed to be in favor of it, the motion failed. April 2023, something a little bit unusual happened. The applicant requested a revote. The board did not have to grant this. The vote already took place. Votes happen all the time in town with not all members present. The chair decided to accommodate the request from the applicant, and another public hearing had to be opened. May 2023, Planning Board and Conservation Commission issued formal letters to the Select Board outlining their strong concerns, which I did include in the backup. Hopefully you all had a chance to read those. June 2023, a public hearing continues. Again, members of Concom, Planning, Land Use, ZBRC, Town Meeting, and residents continued to speak up against this project. And again, nobody spoke publicly in favor of it. And before I mention the last bit, I did just want to mention that after that meeting, an online petition circulated, which garnered 550 plus signatures within a matter of, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. It was not a formal petition. I understand it was online, so it can't be formally acknowledged by the board, but it was just another data point for them to have as they were heading into the vote. Finally, after all that, July 17th, 2023, the Select Board voted 3-2 in favor of providing a letter of support for this project. In favor were members Morandi, Runyon, and Tigas. Opposed were members Espejo and Priest. So that's the history. Before I get into the concerns that were raised, I wanted to show some visuals so you can actually see why there were so many concerns raised. So this is a satellite view of the area. Apologies for my rudimentary renderings there, but I did just want to show you where it's going to propose to be located and what's around it. The white rectangle that says WVH2 is the 24-unit building. The P is for the parking that's next to it. On the right are the existing Windview Heights condos and Richardson Road, where it was originally proposed to be accessed through, but they did not have legal right to do so. On the bottom is Mountain Road. You can also see Little Brook Conservation Land and Overlook Park up at the top. And the yellow triangle is where the access road would begin. And I'm not talented enough to draw in the access road, so the next slide will show you that. So this is based on the most current plans. They're out there on the Burlington website. The perspective is a little different on the slide, just so I could fit it in. Mountain Road is now on the left. Mountain View Way is a side street there. Again, the yellow triangle denotes where the access road would begin. I know there's lots of gray lines and squiggles on this, so I did draw in that red squiggle line to show you exactly how windy the access road is. So this road would be the main road to the development, being used every day by seniors, visitors, delivery drivers, emergency vehicles, etc., in icy conditions, rain, snow, wet, New England weather, you name it. So those are the visuals. If we move on to the next one. Summary of concerns. This is a lot, so I won't get into every single one, but these were all concerns brought up by various boards, commissions, and residents, and the reason that we requested that the select board not provide a letter of support, and that we are now requesting a vote in favor of this warrant article tonight. So the isolated, unwalkable location for seniors in an area without public transportation, the safety of all drivers on the drastic S-curve access road, especially in icy conditions, and the potential for accidents happening on that road. It's one way in, one way out. It would block access for the residents to get out or for emergency vehicles to get in. The incredibly challenging topography and geology of the site, the heavy blasting necessary on such a severe piece of ledge, the vast removal of trees and shrubs in a heavily wooded area that could increase stormwater runoff and soil erosion, and the blasting could also cause damage to properties and foundations. The lack of existing infrastructure to support a higher density development in that area. Next slide. Increased traffic in an already densely populated and heavily trafficked area, the precedent for developers to shoehorn developments in other areas of town, and lastly, as stated by the planning board, by presenting this as a 40B, this moves forward without the normal rigorous review process that other developments in Burlington undergo. The normal planning board process includes all other relevant departments, including engineering, police, fire, conservation, and Board of Health. A 40B development circumvents that process, leaving it all up to the ZBA, and it's not required to adhere to all the rules and regulations required by the various departments. And just another side note, this is not a knock on ZBA. I do have confidence in their abilities to do a thorough and in-depth job with the permit process. I think the concern is that with all of the issues raised, and there's a lack of expert support staff that they have as compared to other boards and commissions in town have. And I think when it comes to the integrity of our land, the stability of existing residents' properties, the character of our neighborhoods, and the safety of our seniors, and I think the most diligent review process we have as a town is warranted and necessary. So what does this vote mean? A vote for or in favor of this warrant article is essentially a vote against Twin View Heights. However, town meeting does not have the authority to say no or yes to any development. It's a request by town meeting that the state respect the wishes of the town and reject the proposal, or if and when it gets to the ZBA, that they do not grant the comprehensive permit. That said, even if this article gets unanimous support by town meeting tonight, the state and the ZBA are well within their rights to disregard and move forward with the process. But this gives town meeting, and more importantly, the members of each of your precincts, an opportunity to have our and their voices heard as to whether we are for or against this project. In closing, it's not town meeting's job to decide whether this project moves forward or not, but it is our job to represent the members of our precincts and to make sure that they are heard. A yes vote aligns with the many, many voices in town that I have heard about this and that many of my fellow town meetings members have also heard. With that, thank you, and I'll turn it over to the moderator.
Thank you, Ms. Colley. Okay, comments from the membership. Mr. DeBona.
Hello, there we are. Hi, Jeff DeBona, Precinct 3. I am a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've been present at all of the meetings at the Select Board this recent time. I was there when they withdrew the first time. To date, not to date, as of Tuesday, we have only received 4 people to reach out to us. I'm not going to speak about the project itself because that's something that needs to come to the Board of Appeals. I believe this should be withdrawn. Everyone has tried to circumvent the process and go around us every time. No communication whatsoever. If you need to get us, our information is on the town website. Reach out to us. There's only 3 people in this room that have reached out to us. That's it. It is not a hard ask to go along with the way the state outlines the process. We did 300 units maybe 2-3 years ago, and no one said a peep. We get 24 units, and everyone's trying to go around the process. We're having this right now. This vote actually means nothing, as Sarah said. And I'm not trying to be insulting to you. I appreciate that you're coming out, you're speaking about something that means something to you. But I think we should follow the process. You can find us at any time. I'm easy to get a hold of. That's all I have.
Ms. Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sherry Ellis, Precinct 3, and through you to the previous speaker. The process at this time is to talk with the Select Board, because that was how this process goes, is the 40B. It's not at this point in time to talk to the ZBA, because this project is not before the ZBA. I was at the meetings back in 2019 and 2020 at the Select Board meeting, where I learned that all of a sudden this went by. I was not allowed to speak. The chair of the Select Board at that time would not recognize the people in the audience. So it was a very untransparent process then. As Sarah said, it is now more transparent because of some of the rules that we put in place, and I appreciate that. So many people have spoken to the Select Board, and that is the process at this point. If it does go through the state for some reason and comes to the ZBA, that is when any one of us here could go to the ZBA and speak with them at that point in time. Thank you.
Anything further? Mr. Glantz.
Thank you, Mr. 1, 2, 3. I'm a rock star. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Nolan Glantz, Precinct 1. A quick comment and a question. So in all the pictures and diagrams and discussion of the site, the one thing that wasn't mentioned, they're all either overhead or vertical, but it's extremely hilly. It's cliffs and cliffs and cliffsy cliffs, that whole area. So those aren't just winding, twisty. They're going to be going way up and down steep hills as well. And then a question, my naivete is showing, but I thought we have enough affordable housing in town so that we don't have to allow 40B projects to railroad through us, that the reason we've maintained the affordable housing rate that we do have so that we can, as a town, reject such plans if we as a town choose to. Can you explain what the process is supposed to be for us to do that?
We'll defer to town council on this one, Nolan.
An applicant can still make an application. The zoning board has a right to exercise, to take advantage of the fact that you have enough subsidized housing and give notice to the applicant. So the applicant either can withdraw or they can deny the permit or approve it with certain conditions. So the zoning board would be in control of the process if they exercise that right.
Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Monty Pearson, Precinct 3. I think that actually the question that Nolan is asking, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but the way the process normally works is that applications for 40B go to the Select Board if it's a friendly 40B proposal, and the Select Board then can either reject it or accept it. And in general, Select Boards tend to reject these proposals because the town has already gotten to the point of having 10% affordable units, as we have been doing in the last few years. Land Use Committee and the Planning Board have carefully put into town affordable housing units so that we would be above the 10% limit and would have complete control over who was able to come into town and put in a 24-unit development. This is a way to go around that process and go around the fact that we have already had affordable housing in. So it's a loophole in the law. It's not a standard process. And I might point out that this is in no way a friendly 40B, that the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission and the Land Use Committee have all expressed reservations about this. And so it is not a friendly 40B. It is an unfriendly 40B that was able to get 3 votes on the Select Board.
So I'd just like to correct a couple of the assumptions that the member made. There are 2 methods to apply for a 40B. One would refer to as the unfriendly process, which would go directly from Mass Housing to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the Zoning Board of Appeals can exercise their safe harbor, which I referred to earlier. The other process is a LIP, a local initiative process, or a friendly 40B, which goes to the selectmen, and they can either endorse it or not. If they decide not to endorse it, then it becomes an unfriendly 40B if the applicant continues to try to go forward. So with all due respect, there's no loophole in the law. There's 2 methods by which an applicant can make a comprehensive permit. And each instance where the town is over 10%, the Zoning Board of Appeals has a right to exercise their safe harbor.
Ms. Byer, please.
Kathy Byer, Precinct 2. I just had a question regarding the Richardson Road access, and it breezed over that that was declared illegal, but I'm not quite sure why, since it seems so much more appropriate.
I'm not going to be able to explain the whole thing tonight, as it took several months to come to that conclusion, but essentially the owners of the land where Windview Heights 2 is being proposed ultimately did not have the right to pass and repass over the private road or easement that exists off of Richardson Road.
Is that permanent? Can't we change?
Well, you would have to have the cooperation of the people who abut the easement, who don't want the traffic going in that direction.
Ms. Sickler.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Eileen Sickler, Precinct 4. Just for clarification, I was also a member of the Housing Partnership, and when looking at the rate, it's really 5.5%. It gets cranked up to about 13%, and that's why we always say, oh, we're over 10%, isn't that nice? Well, the state calculates it by including the units in 40B that are a fair market rate. So it's a little disingenuous, it's misleading to say that we have affordable housing of over 10% because it's really 5.5%. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sickler. Way up in the back there, in the blue sweatshirt.
I just have a comment and a question. Adrienne Callahan,
Hold on. Who are you?
Adrienne Callahan, Precinct 7.
Thank you.
I have a comment and a question. My comment is that I actually did receive a ton of emails from concerned residents about this, actually far more than 4. And so I think because my precinct, it's close to the area. And I think the biggest concern is the access road and the danger of it. Sarah, thank you for your presentation and all your hard work on this, but I do have a question about it. Is in even talking to Jeff, what is the access road the biggest problem, or is the project in it of itself the biggest problem? I don't know if Sarah can speak to that.
Ms. Colley, can you answer that? Microphone down here, please.
Hello, hello. There we go. Well, I guess only speak for myself because there's a whole list of problems. What's the biggest one? Pick and choose. I don't know. To me, the access road is really, really a safety issue for seniors to be traveling on every single day. I spoke to Chief Connerty. I don't know if he's still here. Just to get a sense of the process in terms of like getting a fire truck up there. Obviously, they have an engineer in the fire department whose job is to make sure that their biggest truck can get up there. So he didn't have any concerns about that, but he did express a personal concern for there be that road and there being accidents on there regularly, and having to deal with that from an emergency perspective, accessing the people who are in the building. So I guess from my perspective, yeah, the access road is huge, but the development itself as a whole, where it is on top of that hill and the effect that it could have on the surrounding area, the blasting that needs to take place, that's huge too, so.
But this vote isn't going to change any of that. This is only going to, this decision is still the state's, is that correct?
Yes, it's still the states. It's a data point for them. It's
okay.
Expressing the opinion of the town, because right now all they have is 3 votes from one board.
Okay.
Saying that the entire town wants this. So.
Okay, I understand. Thank you so much.
Yes, back up here, light blue shirt, sir.
Hi, Kevin Clusi, Precinct 2, motion to move.
So we have a motion to move the question. All those in favor of moving the question? All those opposed? I'd say it's a clear 2/3. So the question has been moved. Now we'll move to vote on it. All those in favor of the article? Okay, all those opposed to the article? Okay, the article passes. Let's move on. Article 16. Been moved and seconded. And it is as printed in the warrant. It's the Home Rule petition to amend Chapter 686 of the Acts of 1970. General bylaw review. This is your baby. Let's get up and speak on it, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Scott Martin. I am from Precinct 7. I'm also the chair of the GBRC. For those of you who don't know what GBRC stands for, that's the General Bylaw Review Committee. These Article 16 and 17 are tied together. One is the petition to change our charter, 686 of the Acts of 1970, which, for those of you who don't know, is the state legislature which said we would have a representative town meeting. Some bylaws need to have that charter changed, others do not. So 716 is asking the select board to submit to the legislature the change in the charter. And 17 is actually putting that bylaw in our books. Currently, the filling of vacancies for town meeting members doesn't work. And so we've had some changes over the years that have been implemented that made it work. You saw Precinct 5, I believe it was tonight, saw that happen. A member of theirs, they needed to vote for a new member. They met earlier in the evening before the town meeting was called to order, and the existing members of Precinct 5 voted for the nominee to become a member, and they became a member tonight. These two articles together sets up the bylaws of the town to do just exactly what we did tonight. Any questions? I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator.
Amy, did you want to talk on these things? Ms. Warren, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, through you to the chair of the General Bylaw Committee. To make sure I understand, this is codifying what we are doing now, and when a vacancy comes up, that a person is appointed to the vacancy until the next general election.
Mr. Moderator? Yeah,
Mr.
to answer
Martin.
that question, that's correct, yes.
Ed?
1, 2. Ed Parsons, Precinct 6. I simply want to know why this is necessary if we can implement it without this change, as we did tonight.
Mr. Martin, can you justify this?
In the worst case scenario, thank you, Mr. Moderator. In the worst case scenario, any appointment of a town meeting member that was not appointed in the way that the bylaw is written today, which is to be filled at the next town vote in April, is illegally making votes here tonight. That would be the worst case scenario. So we're trying to fix that. Does that answer your question?
Ms. Saltman?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Myrna Saltman, Precinct 2. We have 99 out of our 126 town meeting members who are present, I hope still present here tonight. That's about the highest count I've heard in town meeting members when we meet in the past many years that I've been a town meeting member. So my concern about these two articles is if there's a vacancy, leave it vacant until the next town election. Let the people in the precinct elect their representatives. I feel that we do an injustice, and it's very undemocratic for 9 people, as they stood here tonight, to pick somebody to replace, unfortunately, the passing of Mr. Fay. And this happens all the time. I've sat in the town clerk's office when one town meeting member came and nominated her friend, and that friend became a town meeting member. We're a democratic process, and we're not using democracy. So like Hillary said, what difference does it make? Let it stay vacant until the town meeting. I mean, the town election. If I'm talking gibberish, it's because I got a cramp in my leg. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Mr. Martin.
The appointment, the acceptance of a town meeting member in this case, the replacement for Mr. Fay, is only until the next town election.
Ms. Nolan, go ahead, Becky.
No, fun too.
Oh, excuse me, Huntoon, sorry, I'm getting my names mixed up.
Sorry, you
Sorry.
confused me too. Michelle Huntoon, Precinct 1. I am also on the General Bylaw Review Committee, and I just wanted to address some of those comments and help clarify this and why we do this. So the bylaws are basically, they act in some ways as an instruction manual for how the town is run. They lay out a lot of procedures and processes, whether it's setting up a committee, how many people can be on that committee, signage. There are a lot of different things that our bylaws address. The bylaws have been around for a while. There are some that don't actually make sense. So on GBRC, what we do is we go through some of them, we clean them up, we add clarification. This is one where the process for filling vacancies, it was very ambiguous. So you could kind of do whatever you wanted to some extent. This lays out instructions and procedures for how to do it so that everyone knows, so that there are requirements for notice to let people know. And it's going to give us consistency and a process for something that has come up very recently and that will come up again. That's all that we're trying to do. That's what you'll see a lot of our articles trying to do. Just provide more clarity and explain how things should work so that there aren't these questions that create issues down the line. Thank you.
Mr. Sinesi.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Adam Sinesi, Precinct 1. My only issue with this, I'm generally supportive of this, but the fact that it has to be advertised in a newspaper, like, newspapers aren't going to be around in 5 years or 10 years. They're not around now. Right, whoever whispered that is absolutely correct. So that would be the biggest concern of mine, that's going to create a hindrance that eventually, shortly, this is going to become obsolete.
Through the moderator, in response to that, I believe that one of our more recent amendments to the bylaws defined newspaper, and it added an inclusion for electronic media, just in anticipation of the death of print news. So we have anticipated that. It does encompass outlets like the Burlington Buzz or the Patch and just other ways to get the word out. So we're not trying to put in language that's going to be obsolete. We're trying to get ahead of that and make sure that it's included in our notice provisions for legal notices as well.
Ms. Beyer, you have a question.
Kathy Beyer, Precinct 2. I'm sorry, I can't let this go. It still says newspaper. We don't really have a newspaper here anymore in Burlington that I know about. And so even with definitions, if it said news media, that might be better. So take a look at that. Thank you.
Mr. Martin.
So the Article 1 of our bylaws, Section 3.10, or 3.22 defines newspapers, and that was voted by this body and approved by the legislature September 27th, 2023. So we have looked at it. It's already taken care of.
Mr. Pearson. Thank you. The question has been moved. All those in favor of moving? Thank you. All those opposed? It's clear 2/3. Now let's vote on the article. All those in favor of the article? All those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. That was Article 16. Now we have to vote on 17. Is there anything more to be said about Article 17? Mr. Martin.
As I mentioned at the beginning, 16 and 17 are tied together. The General Bylaw Review Committee voted 5-0-0 in favor of this article.
Okay. Anybody have comments on Article 17? Seeing none, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 18. Moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to create an ad hoc committee to recommend on electronic voting system for town meeting. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The General Bylaw Review Committee voted 5-0-0 in favor of this article.
Any comments on it?
At our September meeting, we presented a number of articles, and one of the things that kept coming up was a discussion about electronic voting. How do we know if people are voting, and why do we wouldn't have to have roll call votes if we had electronic voting, and on and on and on and on. So the General Bylaw Review Committee, in preparation for making some adjustments to the general bylaws, thought, let's ask the Select Board to set up an ad hoc committee to study the electronic voting systems that are out there, go through the process of getting some quotes and some votes and some ideas, and figure out what we need to do to make that happen. That's what this article is.
Discussion from the body. Mr. Hannafin.
Thank you. Dan Hannafin, Precinct 2. I'm actually very opposed to this. I think it's going to be a waste of money for this body. We don't, we had one roll call vote tonight. I think the last time we had a roll call vote was probably 3 years ago. I don't think it's that often that we need to worry about this. I think it's going to be a significant expenditure, and I think it's also going to take more time to electronically vote and hand out all the whatever buttons or whatever it is that we're going to be using. I think it's probably just something that we could probably do without, and this has been operating fairly well for a long while. I say we stick with it. Thank you.
Further comments? Ms. Fustacci. Then I'll get to Mr. Connors.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joanne Fristacci, Precinct 3. I disagree respectfully with Mr. Hannafin. We watched a roll call vote occur after, I believe you estimated the number at 22. Maybe I misheard, but it happened to be 35 when we did the roll call vote. So I would strenuously advocate for us to look at an electronic voting system. Thank you.
Mr. Connors.
Thank you. Sean Connors, Precinct 3. I agree with Dan. This has been going on for a long time. No problems with this. It's an expenditure we don't need. It's not hard to count. I mean, like they say, there's 99 of us usually here. It's very hard for me to believe that we couldn't do this on our own without having a committee. So I'd rather just see this voted down and go away and hopefully never come back.
Ms. Saltman. Come on, let's get her a microphone, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Myrna Saltman, Precinct 2. One of the items listed in this is number 5. The Rules Committee shall be required to establish the necessary rules to be used and implemented with the use of the EVS at town meeting. The Rules Committee, of which I am chair, was never contacted by the committee that's proposing this, nor have we had any opportunity, much as I tried, because of weather conditions the other night, we had to cancel our meeting. And I think that's something that this town and everyone sitting here tonight, and anyone who's still awake at home that's watching and listening, that we work in a more cooperative manner, that we talk to other committees and not just work around them. And that's why I am opposed to this. Thank you.
Mrs. Byer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kathy Byer, Precinct 2. I have a problem with the way this is written because it is looking at the electronic voting system and the recommendation for one as a fait accompli, both in the title and further down in the second paragraph. It doesn't say that, it says that they are going to evaluate electronic voting systems, but not whether or not that is something that we should be doing in the first place. And so this really seems to be pushing the electronic voting system without looking at the wishes of the body. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, right here, please. Sarah.
Sarah Walensky, Precinct 5. This is more of a point of information. Does this mean that your vote would go on record in a searchable way that your constituents could then look up? What would be the pluses and minuses of that? Have we thought about that adequately? Right now, there's a certain anonymity to voting. Do we want to give that up?
Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To address a couple of the questions that have arisen. This article asks the Select Board to set up an ad hoc committee to evaluate electronic voting systems. You can have a recommendation that is negative. I don't know how many of you have ever been on an ad hoc committee, but I have been on hundreds of them. And a lot of times what we've spent a year studying, we said no. All right? So, and the rules and everything else, what this article does is outline what we think needs to happen. A team has to be put together to evaluate it, and here are some of the other committees that need to be involved. Now, if the Rules Committee doesn't want to create any rules, they don't have to. That doesn't make any difference to me. Let us all sit here with our little gadget, if that's what we decide to buy, and not know how to use it. I don't care. Let the moderator decide how he wants to run them. If he wants to have a vote without a roll call vote, or not use the electronic one, great. That's his decision. He has direct control over what the Rules Committee does and says. So you can have whatever you want. When the committee comes back, this ad hoc committee comes back and says that they don't recommend an electronic voting system, fine. We did our job. We sat here and in our attempt to meet the comments that were made at September's meeting, and there are a lot of them that involved, if we only had an electronic voting system, we wouldn't be having this problem. So I don't quite understand, and it's because I'm tired and it's 11 o'clock and I'm kind of snarky. All right? Now, I can't move the question, but I'm going to hand the phone to somebody else that may be able to.
Move the question.
All right, the question has been moved. All those in favor of moving the question? All those opposed? Looks pretty unanimous to me. Now let's vote on it. All those in favor of Article 18? All those opposed? Somebody gets a point for that.
kids have to go because they can't.
All right. Let's try this one more time. All those in favor, please stand. Thank you. All right. All those opposed, please stand. I'm going to say there's a majority opposed to this thing, and the article fails. Seconded. All those in favor of adjourning? Opposed? We're done. Thank you much.